Chapter 491. City Lord Cow's cultivation and strength were enough to be ranked among the top experts in the Forest of Chaos, otherwise how could he become a city lord? With this kind of strength, he was attacked by the enemy without him noticing at all. From the other side's attack to when it landed, Cow did not notice anything. In other words, if the other side wanted to take his life, it was very likely they would have succeeded. The other side did not do this, so why was that? He either had no motive to kill Cow or he felt that killing Cow was as easy as turning his hand. So, this was not a good time for him and he did not need to waste any effort to grasp it. When everyone looked over, there was a figure that had appeared in the garden at an unknown time. This was a middle-aged elf who looked gentle and refined. His face was impeccably handsome even among the elves. There was not the slightest energy fluctuation coming from his body. He looked just like an ordinary person. He was wearing a green robe and a simple crown on his head. There was a long scepter in his right hand and a silver-white cloak dancing in the wind behind him. A legendary name appeared in the minds of Chu Tian's group. The Elven King Lancelot. There were few people in the Eternal Forest that had seen the Elven King's true appearance, so of course Chu Tian's group hadn't seen him before. However, from Vivian's description of her father, they could tell that this person was Lancelot. The power the Elven King used came from the scepter in his hand. This scepter was called the Forest Scepter, and it was said that it was made from a branch of the ancient Tree of Life. It had an unfathomable might and there was not a second person in the Forest of Chaos qualified to use this weapon. The first feeling the Elven King gave people was not that of a king, rather he was like a well-read scholar or a very charming wandering poet. City Lord Cow still could not determine the other side's identity, but like a wild beast that smelled danger, the veins on his forehead tightened, making his face look fierce. His pupils slightly shrank, revealing not killing intent, but rather nervousness. This was like a hunter who was fully focused on attacking, but suddenly had a piece of red-hot charcoal stuffed in his crotch, and yet he couldn't cry out. The Elven King was like a smooth and calm jade sculpture. His scepter, which was simple and unadorned, was inserted into the ground. Although it did not emit any energy waves, everyone could clearly feel that the entire garden had become the domain of this expert. His power could erupt anywhere at any time. "Retreat, I won't kill you." The Elf King opened his mouth and spoke. There was no sense of threat. Instead, it was more like a sincere plea or consolation to an old friend. City Lord Cow's eyes were focused on Chu Tian, but his divine sense and spiritual sense were looking at the Elven King. Chu Tian and the others had already become bystanders. At this moment, the atmosphere suddenly froze. It was as if time had stopped flowing in the garden. There was only one person who recognized the Elven King's identity and that was Kino behind Cow. Kino was not a person of Battle Banner City and had wandered the Forest of Chaos in his early years. He had dealt with the elves before, so he had some understanding of the Elven King and recognized the legendary life scepter. Kino broke out in a cold sweat and did not even dare to breathe loudly. Even the slightest extra movement would bring disaster to himself. The Elven King said he was willing to let them go and these people were relieved of a heavy burden. Although they didn't know why the Elven King would appear here. Since the Elven King had appeared, there was no meaning in fighting here. When Kino was thinking of how to tell Cow and make Cow retreat. Who would have thought that at this time, something Kino never thought would happen? Roar! Cow broke through the sound barrier and turned into several figures, charging at Chu Tian's group at the same time. They didn't know who this elf was, but it was most likely related to the Eternal Forest and was most likely here for the Divine Tree. There was no way to obtain the Divine Tree. But they had to capture these people at the very least. Otherwise, what meaning was there in this battle? How could Cow be willing? When the Elven King saw this, he gently stabbed the forest scepter a few inches deep into the ground. A vast power spread out from the ground and countless green wooden vines drilled out. They easily bound Cow who was moving at supersonic speed and lifted him into the air. Several dozen vines shot out. Like piercing through a piece of paper, they instantly pierced through Cow's body. Cow revealed a look of disbelief. You. If you kill me, His Majesty the Beast King will not let you go. The Elven King gave a soft sigh. Lancelot will take responsibility for this. Lancelot. When Cow heard this name, his mind turned blank and his eyes opened wide like a dead fish. He finally knew why he was completely defeated. It was the Elven King. Dying in his hands, it wasn't an injustice. With a tearing sound, the Orc City Lord was torn to pieces. Even someone as strong as Cow, in front of the Elven King, he was no different from a little bug. He was so weak that he couldn't even take a single blow. We didn't know it was His Majesty the Elven King. Kino's head was covered in sweat as he quickly bowed. We'll leave now, we'll retreat now. The Elven King gave a faint nod. It was like they had been granted amnesty as they immediately ran away without even thinking about it. Nangong Yun shouted in a dissatisfied voice, "Are we letting them go like this?" Although the other side was the Elven King, Nangong Yun was very familiar with Vivian, so she didn't feel any pressure seeing her father. These fellows caused a mess in Miracle City, wasn't it too easy to let them go like this? Of course. This was already the best result for Miracle City. Although the Elven King was strong, it was impossible for him to fight against over 1 million people by himself. Every minute this battle lasted, Miracle City would suffer even more damage. The Elven King killing Cow was just a deterrent. After all, with Cow's death, the highest leader of the 4 cities' army was gone. If Kino brought the news back, these people would definitely choose to retreat. The prestige of the Elven King was indeed useful. The news of Kino bringing the news of Cow's death and ordering the Battle Banner City army to retreat quickly spread. The armies of the various cities also knew of the Elven King's arrival and immediately rushed to join the evacuation team. The Elven King was one of the strongest people in the Forest of Chaos. His appearance meant that the Eternal Forest was interfering. Who knew how many experts the Eternal Forest had sent, and for them to reach the level of the Eternal Forest, this kind of battle was not something they could handle. Your Majesty Lancelot, I never thought that you would personally come. The Flower Fairies happily surrounded him. The Flower Fairies had a good relationship with the elves, so Lulu and the others had the chance to see the Elven King in their endless lives. The Elven King Lancelot walked in front of the Tree of Life and looked at the 3-foot-tall divine tree with a shocked gaze. This is the ancient Tree of Life? I never thought that it would actually succeed. Your Majesty, this is all thanks to Chu Tian. The Flower Fairy Lulu said, if it wasn't for Chu Tian's method of activating the seed, we wouldn't have been able to make it sprout no matter how much effort we put in. The Elven King swept his eyes over Chu Tian's group. Meng Qingguo and Meng Yingying were a bit nervous. The Elven King was the ruler of the Eternal Forest, the strongest existence among the elves and one of the most influential experts in the Forest of Chaos. Even if it was Meng Qingguo, it would be hard for her to maintain a calm attitude when facing this kind of person. What you did this time was too risky. If I came a bit later, even if you could escape, the Tree of Life would have suffered a mishap. The Elven King looked at the ancient Tree of Life again. This tree's matter has already attracted the attention of many people, so I suggest moving it to the Eternal Forest. This way, it will be easier for the Eternal Forest to irrigate it with the sun's well water, and it will also be protected by the Eternal Forest's barrier. Chu Tian shrugged his shoulders and said, Your Majesty, the Elven King might not know, but once the Tree of Life sprout, its roots will connect to the spirit veins in the surrounding 1,000 miles, becoming one with the earth. Moving it in this kind of situation would be very risky. That's right, Your Majesty the Elven King. Lulu and the others immediately came out to testify. Once the ancient Tree of Life is planted, it can't be moved easily. Not to mention that the Tree of Life seed has been sleeping for countless years. Although it has been awakened with great difficulty, it is still in a very weak state. If it is dug out now, it will definitely be killed. If it was just Chu Tian's words, the Elven King would be skeptical. This fellow was very sly. Who knew if he was deliberately mystifying things? But now that even the Flower Fairies said this, he had no choice but to believe it. The flower fairies were the best gardeners on the continent, and the flower fairies were pure and kind. It was impossible for them to lie to the Elven King. The Elven King knit his brows. This is troublesome. No matter what, many thanks to the Elven King for saving us. Chu Tian cupped his hands to the Elven King. Only Miracle City is in a mess right now. We need to clean up the mess, so forgive me for not being able to receive you. After saying this, Chu Tian did not wait for the Elven King to say anything, as he immediately left with his eyes. Miracle City had experienced the largest calamity since it was built. It was impossible to estimate the current losses. The damage within the city was still acceptable, but the situation on the outskirts was not optimistic. The native tribes had suffered heavy losses, and many factories had been destroyed. Meng Qinggu did a simple calculation. This battle had caused damage, casualties, losses, and looted resources for Miracle City. These direct losses reached around 100,000 source stones. Other than the direct damage and looted resources, they had to comfort the injured citizens, give compensation to the tribes that suffered heavy losses, and also heavily reward the soldiers that killed the enemy. This would greatly increase the already tight financial burden. It's fine if it was just like this. Dolores had a depressed look. Miracle Bank will reduce the interest of the tribes by half and also take care of the repairs. We won't earn anything from this loan and will instead suffer a large loss. Anyone would be depressed if this matter was placed on them. Miracle Bank's business model was stable profit, but that was under normal circumstances. If there was a natural disaster, there was a possibility of losing money. Don't worry, there will be many difficulties in the future, but it will pass. Chu Tian maintained an optimistic attitude. After this battle, Miracle City's reputation will rise and our development in the center of the Forest of Chaos will be even smoother. Is that so? I hope so. Miracle City really couldn't take this anymore. Meng Qinggu tightly knit her brows. She thought that Chu Tian was too optimistic. The 4 cities had been defeated by Miracle City. This matter would indeed increase Miracle City's reputation in the center of the Forest of Chaos, but what about further places? Miracle City had already attracted the attention of a large power like the Eternal Forest. Could their future development be peaceful? Chapter 492. Quickly move it. We have many soldiers that are injured and need to be treated. These medicines need to be sent to everyone as soon as possible. How are the canned food preparations going? If there is any stock, send a batch over from the Great Summer Country. We need to ensure the food of our soldiers. Several hundred employees placed boxes of supplies onto the airships under Meng Yingying's orders. After filling 5 airships, Meng Yingying boarded one with Chu Tian. They rose up from the warehouse and slowly headed for the front lines. When they arrived in front of the airship's window, Meng Yingying could clearly see that the originally beautiful Miracle City was now filled with smoke. Large pieces of the mountain had collapsed and large pieces of the forest had been burned. In just a few short days, Miracle City had turned into a scene of devastation. War was truly a demon. Miracle City had lost over 40,000 soldiers and over 70 to 80,000 were injured, but they had fewer casualties than the attackers. The main reason was that Miracle City had deployed large amounts of source energy weapons to defend, and they had ended the battle at a critical moment when the battle was about to fall into a dangerous situation. If the battle had dragged on for another day, the casualties would have increased by several times. Meng Yingying was a bit sad. Our Miracle City has good mountains and rivers, but now many places have been destroyed beyond recognition. Chu Tian gently hugged her shoulder. Don't be sad, Miracle City has the ancient Tree of Life. I believe that with the power of the Tree of Life, it is very easy to repair the mountains and forests. Meng Yingying nodded in a gratified manner. Warriors of Miracle City. The enemy has been completely defeated. Miracle City has obtained a complete victory. City Lord Chu Tian and the Production Minister Meng Yingying have personally come to congratulate everyone, preparing food and medicine for everyone. Please be assured, your sacrifice for Miracle City will not be in vain. Every drop of blood you shed for Miracle City will make Miracle City more prosperous and protect your future generations. Every warrior that fights for Miracle City will be forever remembered by Miracle City. A few transport airships had yet to land, but their loudspeakers were blaring. When these citizens and soldiers heard this, they couldn't help cheering. This victory was too incredible. This was the fruit of victory that belonged to every Miracle City member. The 5 airships slowly landed. Under the personal command of Chu Tian and Meng Yingying, the boxes of canned food and potions were carried out and delivered to the citizens and soldiers. At this time, the call for mobilization sounded from all over the city. Meng Qinggu personally gave a speech, first praising the victory before she sent out a call for mobilization. The surrounding tribes had suffered heavy losses in the battle, so they needed to mobilize everyone in and out of Miracle City to join in the repair work. The order was given. The entire city responded. Whether it was the gnomes in Miracle City or the people from the surrounding tribes, they all gathered together. Then, the 200,000 to 300,000 people were divided into many small teams and went to different tribes to carry out the repair work. The entire scene was lively and noisy, giving people a strange feeling in their hearts. This was a kind of warmth that he had never felt before. It was more like a sense of belonging to his home. Miracle City did not just obtain victory this time, it also promoted the unity of the local tribes and Miracle City. Miracle Radio seized this chance to report the situation in the various areas, publicizing the positive and hot-blooded events that happened during the battle, promoting the harmonious scene of the tribes and the city united as a family. They even planned to make a related movie. In short, for several hundred years, the tribes in the forest had been in conflict with each other and there were frequent conflicts between the tribes and the city. After fighting together this time, it greatly increased the friendship between the tribes and the city. When Chu Tian and Meng Yingying were busy distributing supplies, Nan Gongyun anxiously rushed over to ask, "Boss, we've caught a total of 60,000 captives. What should we do with them? So many." Nan Gongyun didn't wait for a reply and first said her own opinion, "I think we should just kill them. Since they are invading other people's homes, they should be prepared to pay the price with their lives. Killing them will raise the morale of Miracle City's people and intimidate these thieves, making it so the enemies won't dare invade again. This is over 60,000 people." Meng Yingying revealed a look of disbelief. Kill over 60,000 people? What kind of bloody scene would that be? This method is just too cruel. What else can we do if we don't kill them? Nan Gongyun was an extreme martial artist, but she wasn't a bloodthirsty person. She felt that killing them was wrong, but she couldn't think of a better way to deal with them. These are all villains that have invaded Miracle City, many of their hands are dyed with the blood of Miracle City's people. If we let them go like this, it will affect the morale of Miracle City's people. Meng Yingying gave a suggestion, but our Miracle City will need to expand in the future and we will need to deal with further tribes. If we kill 60,000 captives at once and most of these captives are from the local tribes, I'm afraid it will arouse their hostility towards Miracle City. It won't be good for our company's development in the future. What you say isn't wrong. Nan Gongyun didn't know what to do. She couldn't kill them and she couldn't not kill them, 60,000 mouths had to be eaten. Miracle City's finances were already collapsing, how could they support all these people in the long term? Boss, you should make the decision. You need to ask me such a simple question. We can't release them like this. They are our own sins and debts, so of course we have to pay the price. Chu Tian rolled his eyes, but you don't need to kill them. Go find the young miss and make a list of the captives with a price tag. Then send the price list to the tribes and cities and have them come up with money to redeem them. As for the price, the darker the better. What if they don't ransom them? Don't ransom them. Then they can't blame Miracle City. After all, Miracle City gave the captives a chance, but their tribes gave up on this chance. Miracle City is already being extremely benevolent. Chu Tian paused before saying, if they don't receive the ransom for a long time, then lock them up as slaves for Miracle City or sell them to slave traders. In short, all the ransom or other income will be used as compensation for the casualties. Meng Yingying and Nan Gongyun's eyes lit up. This was a good method. Not only did it leave room to not offend these locals, it created a benevolent and magnanimous image in the forest. It would also give the Miracle City people more compensation, easing Miracle City's financial situation and stabilizing the hearts of the Miracle City people. Boss is too smart, we'll do it like this. Right now Miracle City was busy with the repairs after the battle. Chu Tian was the city lord, so naturally he had to personally reward the citizens and soldiers. Therefore, he brought the production minister Mang Yingying everywhere to give out benefits and rewards. Nan Gongyun was the city defense and military minister in Miracle City. Her task was to deal with the captives and repair the lost source energy weapons. Dolores was the Minister of Commerce and Finance, so of course she had to settle the losses and comfort the tribes. Dongfang Haoran was Miracle City's general, so he had to clean up the troops and let Miracle City's army recover their battle strength. Meng Qinggu was in charge of the overall situation, so of course she was the busiest person. Not only did she have to deal with the talismans, she also had to plan the repairs after the battle. Luckily there was Smart Brain Zero's help, so she didn't need anyone else to help her with this large amount of work. The Elven King seemed to have been forgotten on the side. Of course the Elven King Lancelot didn't care about these small matters. While he was helping the flower fairies cultivate the ancient tree of life in the Miracle Gardens, he was also observing Miracle City's situation. When Lancelot saw that after Miracle City suffered a large calamity, they actually recovered in an orderly manner. There was no chaos during the entire process, which made him very shocked. There were over 10 different races living in Miracle City's area. Not to mention this kind of chaotic time, even in normal situations, it would be very chaotic. The different races in Miracle City seemed to have a tacit understanding, they all wished for Miracle City to be strong from the bottom of their hearts. This was a very rare scene in the Forest of Chaos. Although Chu Tian's team was a bit immature, they still displayed outstanding abilities. Finally Miracle City's pacification work was finished. Chu Tian gathered the city's high management, Clark, and the various tribe leaders for a meeting, mainly commending everyone for their good performance in the city's crisis. Chu Tian also opened up the rights to 100,000 citizens to the various tribes. The tribes in the Miracle Mountain Ridge were like villages and Miracle City was like a large city. The villagers being able to enter a large city was a matter to be proud of. After all, living in Miracle City, not only would they be safer, they would also receive many benefits as citizens in the future, making their lives more colorful. Chu Tian opening up 200,000 people was a very good thing for these tribes. Dolores finally let out a long sigh of relief after the meeting was over. It's finally over. We have to think of a way to earn money, the current hole in our funds is too big. Meng Qinggu asked, Zero, how long can our finances last? Reporting to Sir City Lord, most of our resources have been invested into the budget for rebuilding after the war. Zero honestly replied, because the surrounding tribes have been heavily injured and the industrial park has been damaged, Miracle Bank has large amounts of bad debts. With Miracle Commerce's current finances, we can't cover it all. If we keep this up, our finances will collapse in 2-3 months. Meng Qinggu tightly knit her brows, it's actually this serious? It seems like we have to open new markets as soon as possible and obtain new income to cover the current situation. Actually with Miracle Commerce's conditions and abilities, if they were given a year to stabilize, these problems wouldn't be a problem at all. The problem was, would there really be this kind of chance? Meng Qinggu could foresee that in the future, Miracle City would become the focus of the entire forest. They could barely hold on now, but they couldn't afford to fall into chaos in the future. If there was another similar battle, Miracle City really wouldn't be able to hold on. When Meng Qinggu was thinking of countermeasures, Mang Yingying called and she anxiously shouted, Elder sister, this is bad, quickly come to the transport tower. There are many people coming from the eternal forest and they're all clamoring to steal our Miracle City. Chapter 493. One of the things Meng Qinggu was most worried about had finally happened. The ancient tree of life being planted in Miracle City would attract the attention of the forest giants, and it would make the relationship between Miracle City and the Eternal Forest even more complicated. This was because the ancient tree of life was like a god to the wood elves, just like how the demonic god religion worshipped the little fox. How could the elves allow this kind of important divine object to be taken by outsiders? If this conflict couldn't be resolved, there would be a large problem. In front of the Eternal Forest, Miracle City's strength was too insignificant. Meng Qinggu did not dare be negligent. She put down what she was doing and rushed over. Vivian wanted to build the transport tower for the Eternal Forest to benefit both Miracle City and the Eternal Forest, but when several dozen Elven Council members were sent over, the entire matter developed in a completely unpredictable direction. The ancient tree of life had already grown to around 2 meters in just 2-3 days. The life energy it released was even more vigorous, and it was beginning to show its abilities. This divine tree was planted in the center of the garden, and it immediately connected to the several hundred-mile spiritual veins. It extracted even more pure spiritual energy from the depths of the veins, nourishing the surrounding soil by 10 to 100 times. Its effect surpassed the best spirit-gathering array. Miracle City's spiritual energy became more abundant, and each grain of soil was filled with energy. With the ancient tree of life continuously releasing life energy, all the surrounding plants and animals were nourished, especially the elixirs in the garden. Their growth in a day was equivalent to a month of growth in the past. In other words, the growth of a sacred herb in several weeks was equivalent to a year in a normal environment. If an herb was planted for several years, wouldn't it become a 1,000-year-old herb? Even if Miracle City didn't do anything, they could just buy large amounts of low-aged herbs and sell them to earn large amounts of money. Not to mention the fact that the ancient tree of life had just been born for a few days, its growth potential was unimaginable. Who wouldn't be tempted by this kind of divine object? Not to mention the fact that the ancient tree of life had a special meaning to the Eternal Forest's elves. Once the ancient tree of life was planted, it would be very difficult to transplant it. At least they didn't have the conditions to transplant it right now. The Eternal Forest elves had no choice, they could only think of one method, which was to take Miracle City and let Miracle City become an elven city again. This was something Vivian never thought of at all. You don't have the strength to protect Miracle City and the ancient tree of life. The Elf Council member's attitude was firm. He almost pointed at Chu Tian's nose and shouted, "This tree means too much to the elves. This is the supreme treasure of the elves. Do you want to take it for yourself?" That's right. From today on, Miracle City will be protected by the Eternal Forest. Another Elven Council member said, "Of course, everything you've done for the Eternal Forest will always remember it. The elves will give you enough compensation." The Elven Council's attitude was surprisingly unanimous. Even Ulysses wanted the elves to personally protect the city. Seeing this, Meng Qinggu felt that the situation had become tricky. The Elven Council's attitude was very firm, and there seemed to be no room for negotiation. Miracle Commerce had invested so much effort into Miracle City, how could they just give it up like this? Ha ha ha. Are you pretending to be stupid, or have you all lost your memories? Chu Tian took out a scroll from his chest. Miracle City has completely severed its relationship with the Eternal Forest. The Eternal Forest's Elven Council and the Elven King have agreed to recognize Miracle City's sovereignty and will not be violated. This contract has the signatures of every member and the Elven King. Could it be that the elves who respect the law and the spirit of contracts are going to go against it today? The Elven Council members had ugly expressions. Now they finally understood that they had fallen into Chu Tian's trap. This fellow had definitely drawn a line with the Eternal Forest a few days ago. He had already expected this situation with the appearance of the ancient tree of life. Chu Tian continued to say, "You elves are proud of your civilization, are you prepared to go back on your word?" The Elven Council members' expressions all changed. Although the elves were divided into conservative and reformist factions, they were all elves in the end. They were very protective of contracts and laws. After all, this represented the spirit of the elves and was the reason why the elves were so confident. Augustus stood up in a bit of anger. Human, this is such an obvious trick. Do you think the elves don't have brains? Whatever you say is fine. Chu Tian laughed. The Eternal Forest is 100 times stronger than Miracle City, and Miracle City is definitely weak. Bullying the weak and breaking the contract, what can I do? Just come. At worst you can kill me and show the hypocrisy of the elves to the world. Big brother Chu Tian, don't be angry. Vivian saw that the situation was bad and she quickly stood up. Grandfather speaker, why do you have to force Big brother Chu Tian? If there wasn't Big brother Chu Tian, would Miracle City still be Miracle City? Why can't we work together? Relax, the elves don't do things like bullying the weak. Augusta gave a cold snort. It's just a contract created by a conspiracy, it can't bind the Eternal Forest. The elves will take back Miracle City legally. Chu Tian gave Vivian a look. How hard was it to deal with this group of rotten wood? The elves had a fatal flaw in their character. No matter how old they were, no matter how long they lived, or how much knowledge they accumulated, they would always be simple and inflexible. The elves had a long and complicated law. Chu Tian could find several loopholes with his eyes closed. Also, the elves were very slow at doing things. If they really wanted to argue with Chu Tian, it would take a long time. Ulysses had dealt with Chu Tian before, so he knew that this wasn't a good idea. He immediately gave a suggestion. Chu Tian, we know that you've invested your heart and soul into Miracle City. The elves are not an unreasonable race. How about we trade cities for cities to compensate you? What, trade cities? Give me a map. Ulysses opened a large map, circling an area in the southern part of the Forest of Chaos. This forest is called the Silver Moon Forest. It is not worse than Miracle City in every aspect. The elves have been in Silver Moon City for over 5,000 years. It is several times more prosperous than Miracle City, which only has a few hundred years of history. Not only are there no opponents in the surrounding several thousand miles, there is also a perfect natural barrier and city defense system. If you can enter it, you will have all the resources in your hands. You will still be the city lord of Silver Moon City, but your wealth will increase by 10 times. Meng Qinggu was speechless hearing this from the side. These elves were really willing to take out their hands. The other elven counselors revealed difficult expressions. The Silver Moon Forest was the most prosperous city in the Eternal Forest, but in order to obtain Miracle City, they actually made this kind of decision. This was truly hard on them. We won't trade. You. The elven counselors slapped the table. This human was too arrogant. The elves had clearly made a large concession and given the compensation. What else did he want? There was a reason why Chu Tian didn't care about Silver Moon City. Silver Moon City was an elven city and the elves were a highly xenophobic race. If Chu Tian chose to accept the elven city, when the elves left, it would be equivalent to obtaining an empty city. What use did he have for an empty city? How could Chu Tian care about this little bit of wealth and benefits in front of him? Compared to Miracle City, although it wasn't complete in all aspects, Chu Tian had already gained a foothold here. This place had the best laboratory and the most scholars in the forest and was in the center of the Forest of Chaos, containing a large amount of potential. The most important thing was the ancient Tree of Life. It had a very important meaning to Chu Tian. You have to understand, I'm not doing this for myself. This is also for the Eternal Forest and the elves. Chu Tian knew that he had to use reason to deal with these elves. There are 3 fatal flaws in the Eternal Forest's rule over Miracle City. Not only will you not be able to protect the ancient Tree of Life, it will also cause the entire Eternal Forest to fall into danger. Nonsense. Alarmist words. Chu Tian didn't care what these old elves said as he continued to explain. First, Miracle City and the surrounding several thousand miles are filled with many different races. This is not compatible with the elves. The elven culture cannot be established here at all. Could it be that the elves want to chase away these 10 million people? Second, the elves are slow and have no motivation. It would be fine if it was a normal city. You could slowly build a city with your long lifespan. But Miracle City is a battlefield and there is the ancient tree of life as the fuse. Do you still have time to slowly build a city? Third, the ancient tree of life is a relic from the great ancient era, so the elves will naturally have a large increase in strength once they obtain it. However, the ancient tree of life needs a long time to grow. Do you think the other forest powers will sit and watch you grow? Chu Tian clearly wasn't speaking nonsense. At least the elves had no choice but to face these problems. How would the eternal forest develop in Miracle City and how would they face pressure from all sides? Of course, these problems were not considered by the Elven Council. Although the elves didn't like fighting, they had absolute confidence in their own strength. They didn't fear fighting against the forest giants, they just wanted to bring back the ancient tree of life. The ancient tree of life was too important to the elves. When Augusta was prepared to refute Chu Tian. Chu Tian's words aren't wrong. The Elven King, who didn't say anything from the start, spoke up. Let's not discuss Miracle City's matters for now, we might have some trouble. Trouble? What trouble? While everyone was puzzled, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the sky. It was as if a hole had been punched in the sky. Soon after, several shadows appeared on the horizon. One of them was a huge shadow. From afar, it was at least 100 meters long. Its entire body was pitch black and covered in black scales. It had an incomparably huge pair of wings. Wherever it flew, even the forest was torn apart by its powerful aura. Augusta's expression fell. This is Dragon Lord. The Elven King Lancelot had a serious expression. Deathwing Nidhogg. Chapter 494. Nidhogg. There weren't many people who knew this name in the forest because people were used to calling him the Dragon Lord or Deathwing. No one knew how long Deathwing had lived for. With a lifespan of tens of thousands of years, he should have just reached middle age among the giant dragons. Deathwing, who was at least 10-20,000 years old, could be considered one of the oldest beings in the Forest of Chaos. Deathwing occupied the Dragon's Ridge. Legend said that Dragon City was a city made of treasures and the treasures there could be piled up into the sky. The dragons all had a strong hobby of collecting and Deathwing Nidhogg was one of the best. He had an almost infinite lifespan and a strength that could look down on all living beings, so he had enough time to plunder and collect treasures for himself. There was no doubt. Deathwing Nidhogg was the most famous collector in the Forest of Chaos. Other than that, Deathwing was the richest person in the Forest of Chaos. This Dragon Lord was a black dragon with a pure bloodline, mainly using the power of darkness and death. Therefore, the people he gathered were mostly evil people. There were quite a few dark races that were recruited from underground, like the Dark Elves, the Dark Spirit Beasts, the Demons, and etc. There were even quite a few liches that worked for him. His influence was very strong, covering the sky with one hand. A single sneeze from him could cause a riot in the Forest of Chaos. Too strong. This pressure was too strong. Deathwing's strength was clearly on the same level as the Elven King. But the Elven King gave people a feeling like he didn't have any strength, while Deathwing's pressure was released to the peak. This was not a normal pressure, it was a dragon's might, the might of a giant dragon. This was the might of a peak life form against a low life form. It was like an overlord at the top of the food chain looking down at a pitiful little ant. When this pressure hit Miracle City, there were some weak people with weak wills that fainted on the spot. The others were trembling and they couldn't even stand straight. Meng Qingguo and the others all had pale faces. This was the power of a giant dragon. It was not something a mortal could resist. Deathwing did not come alone, he had several dragons with him. These dragons were dragons with a slightly lower bloodline, but they were still terrifying existences that would not lose to the Eternal Forest's elven counselors. On the back of each dragon, there were some liches, ghouls, and dark elves. So, even if there was a difference in strength, it wasn't too big. Lancelot? I knew you would be here. Deathwing's giant body released a black light and countless profound runes appeared around it. After 4 to 5 seconds, the light quickly dimmed and shrank. In just a few seconds, the wingspan of over 100 meters began to rapidly shrink into a humanoid form that was only about 3 meters tall. Of course, this was definitely not a human. Deathwing's body was still covered in dragon scales, with a pair of majestic dragon wings spread out behind him. The white bone spikes on the ends were like bone spears. His eyes were dark gold and his pupils were reptilian, long and cold. Although he was smaller, his majesty didn't decrease at all. The Elven King released a gentle and natural aura that instantly balanced out Deathwing's killing intent, making everyone let out a sigh of relief. We haven't seen each other for at least 80 years, do you really have to release killing intent as soon as we meet? Let's sit down and have a good chat. Deathwing's dragon wings shook. What's the rush? Not everyone is here. The Elven King was a bit stunned and immediately felt something. Although he couldn't see it with the naked eye, the Elven King could see everything within 100 miles with the forest scepter. At this time, two groups of figures the size of small mountains were approaching Miracle City at the same time. Dong, dong, dong. The heavens and earth shook. All living beings were bowing down. This was like a scene of a deity descending. A vast pressure swept in all directions and with an earthquake-like trembling, 15 giants appeared in their field of view. If they didn't personally see it, no one would believe that there would be such tall people in this world. Each giant was around 100 meters tall and a human standing in front of them looked like a toe. Each giant's skin was covered in a metallic luster, giving people a feeling of being invulnerable. At the same time, each giant's body was covered in large amounts of lightning runes. There were no pupils in their eye sockets, only burning flames of thunder. Titan. This was the Titan race. The Titan race was the highest level of giants, there weren't many of them left on the continent. They could be considered as rare existences like phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. The Titan's body contained the terrifying power of heavenly lightning, therefore it had a destructive power that even gods and ghosts couldn't block. It was a terrifying race that made everyone tremble in fear. In another direction, there were several dozen incomparably large figures moving about. These figures were a bit smaller than the Titans, but they were much thicker. They looked like giant apes, but they had terrifying fangs and claws. Their large bloody mouths could easily swallow 3-5 bulls at once. Wherever these gigantic beasts passed by, there was a violent, murderous aura, and all sorts of unparalleled ferocious beasts' auras. It was enough to make any living creature retreat. Behemoth. This was the Behemoth race. The Behemoth race was also a very ancient race. The Behemoth's reproductive ability was very poor, so there were very few of them. Moreover, the Behemoth race had a very interesting characteristic. Every 100 behemoths born, 99 of them would be called behemoth giant beasts. What was a giant beast? They only had strength, but their minds were simple. These behemoth giant beasts were very terrifying, they could be considered natural war machines. Moreover, they were very cruel, filled with a natural desire for destruction and slaughter. Every 100 behemoths born, there would only be one intelligent behemoth. This behemoth was the natural king of beasts, the king of spirit beasts. It was a natural-born leader. The savage highlands and the giant mountain ranges people are here. Chu Tian slightly knit his brows when he saw this matter is becoming more and more lively. The Titans and behemoths stayed outside Miracle City. Two figures charged into Miracle City. One was a man around the same height as a dwarf and the other was a miniature behemoth that had shrunk several dozen times. These two people's auras were not much inferior to the Elven King's. They should have used a secret technique similar to death wings to shrink their bodies. Great Titan, Thunder Fury Sylvester. Golden Behemoth, Burst Claw Nakazan. These two people were also legendary characters. One was the highest leader of the giant mountain range and the other was the king of beasts in the savage highlands. Adding in the Dragon Lord's master and the Eternal Forest's king. The four most influential people in the Forest of Chaos were all here. This was definitely a scene rarely seen in 100 years. The Elven Council speaker Augusta walked beside the Elven King and coldly looked at these fellows. What are you doing here? Even though Renu had become as short as a dwarf, his aura was still intimidating. He looked at Augusta and said in a slightly mocking tone, "You're still alive, old elf? It really isn't easy." Augusta's face sunk. "Thunder Fury, you better be more polite with your words." Whether it was the Titan Thunder Fury, the Behemoth Burst Claw, or the Dragon Lord Death Wing, they were all existences with incomparably long lifespans. Even the elves in front of them had already been replaced several times. Of course, having a long lifespan had its advantages and having a short lifespan had its advantages. The elves had the most experts and the Elven King Lancelot was not inferior to these three. Other than that, the Elven speaker Augusta was also an expert on the same level. The highest elven leaders of the forests under the elves' control were only experts that were a level lower. The laws of the continent were fair. Long lifespans, weak reproduction, slow growth, and strong individual strength. Short lifespans, fast reproduction, and fast growth, group strength could not be ignored. The reason why the humans could quickly rise on the continent was because of this. Burst Claw said in a deep and heavy voice, "Lancelot, you're not going to give me an explanation for killing my people?" The Elven King revealed a faint smile. "I gave him a chance, it was him who didn't cherish it." Burst Claw's eyes were filled with a red light and a cruel killing intent appeared. It said that the Eternal Forest's current Elven King is even more elegant than the previous one. "You've only been on the throne for 100 years and haven't fought yet, how about we take this chance to compete?" The two of them were both peak experts of the forest. If they fought in Miracle City, the situation wouldn't be good. "I have no objections if you want to compete." Deathwing seemed like he had no interest in fighting with these people, but my time is very precious, so I'll go straight to the main topic. "I can smell the ancient tree of life scent, and with such a good thing appearing, aren't the elves prepared to let us see it?" Thunder flashed around Raynor when he heard this. This is the common treasure of the entire forest, the elves wouldn't want to take it all for themselves, right? The behemoth's burst claw's killing intent disappeared and he revealed a look of dread. If the Eternal Forest obtained the story of life, the Eternal Forest's influence would greatly increase. Although the Eternal Forest didn't like fighting, who would like a superpower hiding in their territory? An ancient item is a heaven-defying item, this kind of ominous thing should be destroyed. The ancient tree of life was undoubtedly a good thing. But whether it was the Dragon's Ridge, the Giant's Mountain Range, or the Savage Highlands, they all didn't want this thing to fall into the Eternal Forest's hands. Even if they couldn't obtain it, they had to destroy it. The elves revealed looks of high vigilance. Augusta coldly said, "If you have the ability, then come and take it yourself." 3 against 2, the elves didn't have a high chance of winning. The entire Elven Council was here and there were several dozen experts from the Eternal Forest. They had the power of the ancient tree of life behind them, so if they fought to the death, they might have a chance of winning. Under the leadership of the forest's 4 giants, there were several dozen wyverns, several dozen titans, several dozen behemoths, and over 100 elven experts. If they were to fight, would Miracle City still exist? When swords were drawn on all sides, an insignificant voice came from the side. "Can I say a few words?" Chapter 495. This voice came too suddenly. Whether it was Burst Claw, Thunder's Fury, or Death Wing, they had never placed creatures other than elves in their eyes. Humans did not have any influence in the Forest of Chaos, so they were often called outsiders. Not to mention that these humans were so weak. When several large characters were in a fierce confrontation, a bug suddenly appeared beside them. What kind of result would this bug have in the end? Trample it to death. What qualifications does an ant have to speak? Die. A violent claw glow burst out, setting off a scarlet tornado that was several meters tall. The ground was torn apart like paper as it flew towards Chu Tian with a destructive force. This was just a casual attack from Burst Claw, but its might was not something that Chu Tian could block with his strength. Killing a human like this was no different from killing a bug to Burst Claw. Burst Claw, your temper is still this big. Lancelot waved his forest scepter and from the ground around Chu Tian, countless wooden vines came out. Each vine was only as thick as a finger and looked weak, but they released an unbelievable power and speed. They slammed into the claw glow like lightning and the entire tornado was instantly shattered. This time Burst Claw and Thunder's fury revealed a trace of fear. The current Elven King had only been on the throne for 100 years and because the Eternal Forest did not participate in any battles, Lancelot had never fought with any of the other large characters. So no one knew how strong the Elven King was. The Forest Scepter was one of the Eternal Forest's treasures and its might was inseparable from the user's strength. The Elven King did not use any of his own strength at all, just using the Forest Scepter's power to resolve Burst Claw's attack. He did not reveal himself, but this was enough to prove that the Elven King's cultivation was not low. The most important thing was that the Forest Scepter was refined from a branch of the Ancient Tree of Life. Now that it was covered by the Ancient Tree of Life's power, the Forest Scepter's might would increase by a large amount. The Elven King could fight against a peak forest expert with just the Forest Scepter's might. If he added in his own strength, it was not impossible for him to fight one against two. In this way, with the addition of Augusta, they might not suffer too much in a direct conflict. The Elven King ignored Burst Claw's fiendish expression. His gaze fell on Chu Tian. What do you want to say? Thank you, Your Majesty the Elf King. Chu Tian's expression didn't change from beginning to end. He walked to the center of the four giants. Regardless of whether he was facing the high and mighty draconic might, the imposing and domineering titan, or the ferocious and terrifying behemoth, he acted as if nothing had happened. It was as if the pressure didn't exist at all. A few of the big shots were astonished. This human, who wasn't particularly strong, was actually able to remain calm in the face of such pressure. This was no longer a matter of courage or mental fortitude. Regardless of whether it was the Elf King, Behemoth, Titan, or Giant Dragon, all of them were existences that far surpassed humans in terms of life level. Their deterrence didn't only come from the difference in strength, but also from the very essence of their souls. A little lamb might dare to provoke a powerful water buffalo, but even the bravest lamb, if it was placed in front of a pack of tigers and lions, that kind of fear that was deeply rooted in its soul wasn't something that could be overcome with courage. Not to mention the titans, behemoth, and giant dragons. In front of these ancient and tyrannical beings, humans couldn't even be considered lambs. This was the high-level beings looking down on the low-level beings. Chu Tian could remain calm under this kind of gaze. How could people not be shocked? This meant that no matter how strong this human was, at least in his heart and in his soul, there was an expert that dared to challenge a giant dragon. Thunder's fury had a bit of respect for this human. Who are you? The master of this land, Miracle City's city lord Chu Tian. Chu Tian? Deathwing's long and cold dark golden eyes stared at him, just like a poisonous snake staring at a frog. Although it was calm, it released a chill that made people's hairs stand on end. So you're saying that my subordinate was killed by you? You're talking about that lich? No, respected Dragon Lord, you must have made a mistake. Chu Tian was not shocked by the black dragon's aura at all as he said with a relaxed expression, not only is he not dead, he's alive and well, but he has already jumped ship. Zero, your old leader is here, are you not going to greet him? Deathwing was stunned. Respected Dragon Lord, Dragon City Lord, Your Majesty Deathwing. A cold voice without any emotions came from the speaker in the corner. Sir City Lord has given me a new life and I'm living very well now. I ask Your Majesty Deathwing to not worry about me. Deathwing's expression changed and he immediately looked around. Where are you? Zero is Miracle City's manager. His ears can cover Miracle City and his eyes can cover Miracle City, so he is everywhere. Chu Tian knew that explaining this to Deathwing was troublesome. In a sense, Zero's existence is close to a spiritual god. Such a wild-speaking human. Burst Claw took a step forward. The Wild Shaman Religion's Green City branch, it seems like it was also destroyed by you. Chu Tian looked at him and shook his head as he said, "Powerful 10,000 Beast King, I didn't destroy the shaman religion. It's the opposite, rather I made them flourish. A small green city shaman branch has already jumped out of the forest and established their influence in the distant Warhounds Plains. Just based on this point, wouldn't the Savage Highlands headquarters find it hard to do? So I didn't destroy any shaman branch, rather it's the opposite, I pushed the shaman religion forward. The shaman religion was developing in the Warhounds Plains. Who would believe this matter? Your eyes are too short." Chu Tian's words made everyone break out in a cold sweat. Daring to say these large characters were short-sighted, only Chu Tian dared to do this in the entire forest. "You're only fighting for benefits in the small forest of chaos, does the continent only have this small forest? With your strength and my technology, how hard would it be to become an overlord of the continent in the future?" These words were too much. Even in the forest of chaos, there were still many places that had not been developed. Chu Tian said, "The ancient tree of life can't be moved and Miracle City can't be seeded. This is an iron principle that no one can change. Of course, with your strength, you can easily take Miracle City, but have you ever thought that if you do this, the forest of chaos will be filled with an unprecedented chaotic war? The ancient tree of life's value lies in creating life. Could it be that you want to watch it become a fuse for death and war?" Augusta objected, "The ancient tree of life belongs to the elves. If you want to take the elves' divine object, why do you need to use this kind of high-sounding excuse?" "You're wrong." Chu Tian announced in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "Miracle City has no intention of becoming enemies with any power. For Miracle City's stability and for the millions of lives to be saved, Miracle City has its value. As long as everyone takes a step back, with Miracle City as the center, we can create a special region in the center of the Forest of Chaos. Whether it is Miracle Commerce's technology or the ancient tree of life's power, it will all benefit everyone. At that time, not only will the Eternal Forest obtain large benefits, the Dragon's Ridge, the Giant's Mountain Range, and the Savage Highlands will also change. If the Dragon Lord is willing to cooperate with Miracle Commerce, with Miracle Commerce's channels, you can earn money from the continent in the future. Wouldn't the Dragon Lord's wealth be 10 times greater? If the Titans cooperate with Miracle Commerce, the Titans' craftsmen can pick any material they need, even if it's the stars in the sky, they can be plucked for you and the Giants can build magnificent palaces. At that time, wouldn't the Giants obtain 10 times the resources they do now? If the Savage Highlands cooperate with Miracle Commerce, we can sell you the strongest and most advanced weapons on the continent, allowing your armies to kill their way out of the Forest of Chaos, sweeping in all directions and sweeping through everything. At that time, wouldn't you obtain 10 times the land you do now? Although the Forest of Chaos communication was blocked, these giants all had eyes and ears. With what happened to Miracle City recently, it was impossible for them not to know about Miracle City's technology, at least they knew a part of it. If Chu Tian was given enough time, Chu Tian had the ability to do this. However, would these big shots agree to it? If they built a special region in the center of the forest with Miracle City as the center, wouldn't they be supporting a fifth power outside of the 4 great powers? If they waited until Miracle City became big, what would they do if they smashed their own feet with a rock? I support the proposal to build a special region. The Elven King was the first to speak. Miracle City is related to a large conflict of interest, how about everyone take a step back? The elves are willing to become Miracle City's most reliable ally. Augusta was dissatisfied with this decision. Why did the elves have to lower their heads to a human? No matter how strong Chu Tian's potential was, he still hadn't matured yet. Death Wing, Thunder Nu, and Burst Claw were even more dissatisfied with this. Miracle City had a close relationship with the Eternal Forest and one of Miracle City's Vice City Lords was someone from the Eternal Forest. If they acknowledged Miracle City's independent status and allowed Chu Tian's group to continue raising the ancient tree of life, wouldn't the Eternal Forest benefit the most in the end? I agree with Chu Tian's proposal. When the 3 large characters didn't say anything, a deep voice came from the ground. Cenarius. The large characters were all shocked because hundreds of Treants had appeared around Miracle City at an unknown time. The one leading them was over 100 meters tall. It was the Treant patriarch Cenarius, who had the title of Forest Protector. When Chu Tian saw Cenarius appear, he let out a long sigh of relief. "You're finally here." Cenarius slowly and firmly stepped forward. "The Treants are willing to die to protect the ancient Tree of Life. Anyone that tries to harm or destroy the ancient Tree of Life will become the eternal enemy of the Treants. I agree with City Lord Chu Tian's proposal. The Treants will move to Miracle City and form a defensive line for Miracle City." Chapter 496. The Protector of the Forest, Cenarius. Basically everyone had forgotten about this large character. Cenarius's individual strength was not weaker than the peak experts of the Forest of Chaos, and the forest power that Cenarius led was a power that could not be ignored in the Forest of Chaos. Only the Treants were very rare and they didn't move for several hundred years, so there was no need to fight for resources. Therefore, they were even more low-key than the elves and were ignored. Now they were suddenly dragged in. The entire situation was different. The Treants leaned towards the elves. This was a fact that no one could deny. After all, the Wood Elves and Treants had a large similarity. They both viewed the ancient Tree of Life as a divine object. It was the ancient Tree of Life's power that gave birth to their ancestors and gave them their power. With the Elven King as the leader and the strength of the Elves and Treants, if the two sides fought, their chances of victory would decrease by quite a bit. It was very likely this would become a long battle. This would drag the entire forest into the swamp of war. If the entire forest fell into the swamp of war, the situation could be predicted. The image the eternal forest had built over the years would have a decisive effect at this time. Imagine, there are two neighbors. One is a ferocious tiger that often invades others, and the other is an elephant that is equally strong but knows its place and does not expand. When the two neighbors fight, the two neighbors will fight each other. Who would you help? It could be guessed even with your feet. If the two sides were in a stalemate and couldn't decide a winner, most of the neutral forest cities and tribes would side with the eternal forest. This would suppress the overall strength of the other three sides. Burst Claw gritted his teeth. "Aren't you afraid of the rare Treants going extinct? Each Treant can be sacrificed for the ancient Tree of Life." Cenarius' voice was slow and sluggish, but it was filled with an unshakable determination. "If you doubt the Trent's determination, you can give it a try." Cenarius was not joking. Actually, the Treants never joked. The Treants were a very serious race. They didn't have many emotions and were very stubborn. Not to mention that the ancient Tree of Life was related to the Treants even more than the Wood Elves. The ancient Tree of Life was the father of the Treants and their god. The atmosphere instantly fell into a deadlock. "Alright, the 1,000-year-old Cenarius has appeared, so I'll give you face." Deathwing expressed his stance first. "I support Miracle City's independence." Since Deathwing said this, what objections could Burst Claw and Thunder's Fury have? This wasn't because they truly wanted to support Miracle City, it was just a delaying tactic. As long as the ancient Tree of Life wasn't completely controlled by the Eternal Forest, these three powers didn't need to fear them. No matter how powerful the Treants were, their numbers were still limited. The Wood Elves were the true opponents that they had to be wary of. Augusta was still not satisfied with this result. In the end, after going through so much trouble, he still couldn't retrieve the ancient Tree of Life. Instead, this insignificant city, Miracle City, became completely independent. The Elven King Lancelot said before Augusta could, "Since it's like this, the elves have also agreed." "Your Majesty. This is the best result." The Elven King looked at Augusta. "Sir Speaker doesn't want to see the entire Forest of Chaos turn into rivers of blood and people die." Indeed. That was the best outcome. To the three powers, as long as the ancient Tree of Life didn't fall into the Eternal Forest's hands, there was still room for a buffer and solution. To the elves, although the ancient tree of life didn't fall into their hands, with the transport tower, how hard would it be for the elves to come to Miracle City? Not to mention that Cenarius was guarding Miracle City and the Treants were close to the elves. This was a chance for the elves. If both sides took a step back, the Forest of Chaos would be safe. If they fought to the end, both sides would suffer heavy losses and there would be no winners. The Elven King had to consider many things. He hoped to use Miracle City to reform the elves, so it wasn't troublesome to have some connections, rather it was necessary. All right. Thunder's Fury looked at Cenarius. Since it's like this, I'll ask Cenarius to be fair. I believe the Treants won't go back on their word. Cenarius slowly said in a voice filled with power and determination, with the name of the Forest Protector, the Treants will protect Miracle City's position as a neutral city and support Miracle City's city lord, Chu Tian's position. Whether it is the elves, dragons, titans, behemoths, or any other race in the forest, if they try to take Miracle City for themselves or use any methods to directly or indirectly control the ancient tree of life or Miracle City, they will be considered enemies of the Treants. The Treants wouldn't go back on their word. Not to mention a person like Cenarius. This kind of promise was more effective than any contract, at least it could ensure that Miracle City wouldn't fall into the elves' hands. Because everything happened so suddenly, no one was prepared, so this was the best solution. Lancelot, I hope you can keep your word. Goodbye. Death Wing, Burst Claw, and Thunder's Fury quickly left Miracle City. They knew that they didn't make enough preparations this time, so this promise was just a delaying tactic. As for how to deal with Miracle City and the ancient Tree of Life, they had to consider it further. The elven counselors all had dark faces. The Miracle City people all had strange expressions on their faces. In the end, the four giants didn't gain any benefits at all and it was the weak Miracle City that gained the benefits. This change of events was too much for them to handle. Damn. Finally Augusta could only pinch his nose and throw it away. We're returning to the Eternal Forest for the meeting. Other than the Elven King father and daughter, the other elves all left Miracle City. Ha, it really was dangerous. Chu Tian cupped his hands to Cenarius, not feeling any joy from surviving a disaster at all. Rather he said with a mischievous smile, it's a good thing you appeared in time, otherwise Father's city lord position wouldn't be stable. You bringing the ancient tree of life to the world is a historic feat. Cenarius spoke very slowly, but it was able to reach the heart, giving people a peaceful feeling. The Treants will protect the growth of the ancient tree and will also protect the rights you have. Meng Qinggu didn't believe her own guess. Respected Forest Protector, may I ask how much the Treants will send to protect Miracle City? All of them. All of them. The Treants will only follow the agreement, they won't accept Miracle City's orders. Although Miracle City couldn't directly order the Treants, in the mountains around Miracle City, if there were tens of thousands of Treants stationed, how strong would Miracle City's defenses be? Would Miracle City still need to worry about being attacked like this? Unless one of the four major powers came to attack, the matter of them being attacked into the city would never happen again. Young Miss, Yingying, what are you standing there for? Chu Tian shouted, why aren't you helping our respected Treant friends settle down? Yes. Cenarius was the strongest Treant, so of course he was placed in the Miracle Gardens. Not only could he protect the ancient Tree of Life, he also didn't need to worry about the treasures in the gardens being destroyed. As for the other Treants, they were placed in and around Miracle City, especially in the surrounding mountain forest. The Treants could not move for several decades or even 100 years. It was these fellows that didn't move that became Miracle City's strongest protective umbrella. Adding in Miracle City's life detection radar, no matter if the enemy was in the sky, on the ground, or underground, they couldn't hide and were instantly killed. The Elven King brought Vivian in front of Miracle City. There won't be any power in the Forest of Chaos that can easily shake your position as City Lord. You can rest easy now. You praise me too much, I'm just trying to make a living. Royal Father. Vivian looked at the Elven King, you should do it now. What are you in a rush for? The Elven King helplessly shook his head before saying to Chu Tian, Vivian told me that Miracle City's bank can provide a deposit service. Moreover, the longer the deposit, the higher the interest. Vivian quickly added, the elves have quite a few idle source stones, so rather than leaving them in the forest, it's better to store them in Miracle Bank to earn some interest. Although my royal father can't get past that bad-tempered speaker, it isn't a problem to make some money. Chu Tian instantly understood Vivian's intention. This girl was planning on helping Miracle City solve their financial problems. Not bad, not bad. How much do you want to deposit? Chu Tian added, the Elven King is personally depositing it, so naturally I'll give you the highest interest. I guarantee you won't suffer a loss. First deposit 150,000 source stones. Vivian decided for her father, deposit it for a year. Chu Tian's eyes lit up. This was a fucking large business. Miracle City's finances were close to collapsing, so this 100,000 source stones could be considered a timely rain, solving this urgent problem. After a year, there will be 50% interest. Chu Tian looked at the Elven King and said, Miracle City's current economic situation isn't good, this is already the limit. A year of 50% interest. The Elven King never thought that Miracle Bank's interest would be this high. Wouldn't 150,000 become 225,000 after a year? The wealth of the outstanding merchants of the continent would only be like this. The Elven King didn't do anything at all, he just moved the source stones to another place. Money isn't a problem and interest isn't a problem. The Elven King revealed a deep smile, I can even deposit it in the bank without interest. There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Chu Tian saw Vivian's surprised expression and immediately asked in a vigilant voice, what do you want to do? Don't be nervous. The Elven King shook his head and said, I just want to buy a smart brain, that's all. Smart brains were all clear, this fellow knew quite a bit about Miracle City. Chu Tian thought that Miracle Commerce already had 4-5 smart brains, so it wouldn't affect Miracle City too much even if they sold one. Now that there were over 100,000 source stones in the account, he had to give face to the Elven King, alright, I agree. The Treants were personally protecting the city and there was a large amount of money coming in from the Elven King. Good news came one after another. The city's crisis and the financial crisis were solved at the same time. Whether it was the Meng Qinggu sisters, Nangong Yun, Dolores, or the entire Miracle City, they were all filled with an unprecedented pleasant surprise. Miracle City was truly blessed after surviving a disaster. Chapter 497. Miracle Commerce's blessing in disguise didn't mean they didn't have to worry. The three powers wouldn't easily compromise and the elves wouldn't easily give up. In this complicated situation, they could only cooperate with the Elven King to stabilize the elves and also develop Miracle Commerce's military strength. The Treants wouldn't accept any orders. If Miracle Commerce wanted to dominate the forest, they needed a strong military strength that all the powers feared. Miracle Commerce couldn't train peak experts for now, therefore they needed to develop more advanced weapons. For this, Chu Tian and Meng Qinggu went to the Great Summer Country to understand the situation. The highest leaders of the Great Summer Yun sect, Gu Qianqiu and Yun Tianhe, personally came to greet them. These two old fellows were now true spirit cultivators, so they looked a bit younger than before. Being able to grow this fast at such an old age, one was because of several decades of experience and the other was because of Miracle Commerce. Chairman, Vice Chairman, please take a look. This is Miracle Commerce's first automated smart brain factory. The two of them were filled with pride because the factory in front of them had a special meaning to Miracle Commerce. This was Miracle Commerce's first automated and intelligent factory, as well as the first automated factory on the continent. Miracle Commerce had invested a lot of manpower and resources, but the returns were completely worth it. Gu Qianqiu said to Chu Tian while walking, we've already created a new generation of manufacturing. From now on, arrays, talismans, equipment processing, and products won't need any manpower and these machines will do it for us. From the simple lights and source energy pots to the complex cell phones and even the source energy computers, the core parts can all be placed in the factory for 24-hour automatic production. Chu Tian and Meng Qinggu listened to the introductions as they walked. This factory wasn't too big, but it wasn't small either. There were 200 automated machines working at the same time, making it several times faster and more efficient than humans. Therefore, Miracle Commerce could save over 1,000 excellent workers. Moreover, they wouldn't make any mistakes, they wouldn't get tired, and they wouldn't stop. They would be working at the highest efficiency every second. As for the 1,000 liberated people, they would be freed from a day's worth of work. Miracle Commerce could put more people into research and development, creating a virtuous cycle. Chu Tian asked, "How long does it take to make a super source energy matrix?" With the control of the AI, the engraving equipment will operate automatically. The efficiency of the entire factory will be greatly increased. It's not something that can be compared to manpower. Yun Tianhe proudly said, "Now we can produce a set every day. This was something we didn't even dare think about before. One set a day was still too slow. But everything had to be done step by step." Meng Qinggu, on the other hand, was very satisfied. Although the computing speed of the smart brain is still limited, the increase in the number of smart brains can also make up for the lack of individual ability. Our space warehouse, transportation system, financial system, weapon equipment, manufacturing, research and development, each industry requires a large number of smart brains to control. A smart brain was really a good thing. Before Chu Tian invented it, Meng Qinggu couldn't understand its benefits. But now, he discovered that he couldn't leave the AI. Miracle City couldn't just rely on 0 and 2, they needed even more smart brains. This place will be a computer manufacturing factory in the future. We'll only make supercomputers and won't care about anything else. Chu Tian felt this wasn't enough. Other than that, we need to make faster and more advanced smart factories. In half a year, we need to have 10 in the Great Summer Country, 5 in Oldman's small town, and 20 in Miracle City. The two old men couldn't help being speechless. That many? This is the minimum requirement. Meng Qinggu replied for Chu Tian, "The manufacturing industry is the support of prosperity. Although Miracle Commerce doesn't have much money, we have accumulated enough resources over the past year and there are enough gnome scholars, so we don't need to worry about manpower. Our company's resources and manpower allocation are the highest priority, so you can directly report to the production minister Ying." Gu Qianqiu and Yun Tianhe nodded. "Let's look at the weapon results." Alright, according to the chairman's design, an entire 500-person research team has been working on it for several months. Adding in the addition of smart brains, the research progress has increased by a large amount. The first generation of close combat energy and defensive weapons have finally been successfully researched. Oh. Chu Tian was a bit surprised. "Let's take a look first." Gu Qianqiu took out a black metal sword hilt and a similarly black metal arm guard. Chu Tian and Meng Qinggu were the highest leaders of the Yun sect. There was no need to mention Chu Tian, the core technology and ideas for the Yun sect project were all proposed by him. Meng Qinggu was not simple either. Her strong learning and memory allowed her to grasp more technology than any scholar in the Yun sect. This was the energy sword and energy shield. Miracle Commerce had always focused on researching source energy equipment, so it was impossible for the two of them to be unfamiliar with it. Miracle Commerce's source energy weapons were mainly long-range guns and missiles, lacking in close-range attacks and defense. These energy swords and energy shields were made to make up for these shortcomings. Of course, compared to normal source energy weapons, this equipment was much more technical. Although Chu Tian provided the core technology and ideas, it took several months of research and tens of thousands of source stones and materials, as well as several tens of thousands of failures before succeeding. The energy swords and energy shields use white energy. Yun Tianhe picked up the sword hilt and activated the array on it. A spider web of light spread out and with a slight buzzing sound, a bright beam of light shot out from the sword hilt. The light was not dazzling, looking very beautiful, but it also released a strong and dangerous energy fluctuation. The energy in the Sword of Light is several times stronger than the source energy cannons. It can easily cut through the protective spirit energy of a true spirit expert at close range, so its killing power in close range is quite impressive. It's not bad. Chu Tian looked at the armed guard. How about the energy shield? Meng Qingguo in comparison was more concerned about the energy shield technology. The energy swords could only be used in close range, but the energy shield was different. If Miracle Commerce could master the energy shield technology, they could use it in all aspects. Not only could it protect a person, it could also protect the source energy cannons, missile launchers, airships, battleships, and even cities. Yun Tianhe put the armed guard on his left hand and activated the source energy array. Wang! A half-arc of energy was released from the groove on the armed guard, covering around 2/3 of his body. The light was condensed like an energy sword and did not scatter, flowing like water. The current energy shield also uses white energy. Large amounts of energy particles collide with each other to create a repulsive force, repelling energy and physical attacks. All the energy is one, so each time it receives an attack, it will be weakened by a bit. At full strength, it can block an attack from an Earth Spirit cultivator. Meng Qingwu's eyes lit up. Very strong. If normal soldiers could block an attack from an Earth Spirit cultivator, even if it was just one attack, the battle strength of the army would increase by a large amount. This was a pity. If this kind of weapon was mass-produced earlier, they wouldn't have suffered so many losses in the war. But since the research had succeeded, would it be far from mass production? Chu Tian nodded in satisfaction. Our source energy equipment technology has already matured, now it's time to create even higher-grade war weapons. Meng Qinggu knit her brows. Even higher-grade war weapons? Chu Tian said, the airships are too weak in the end. I feel like we have the ability to create even higher-grade energy devices. Moreover, we can use smart brains, radars, missiles, source energy cannons, energy shields, and etc. This kind of airship is the true overlord of the skies. The moment he said that, everyone was quite frightened. Smart brains, radars, missiles, source energy cannons, and even the newest energy shields, as well as a higher-grade energy structure than the airships. This kind of weapon made people's blood run cold just thinking about it. Perhaps just a few of them would be enough to conquer a small country. These individual technologies are maturing day by day. I don't think it will be a big problem. Meng Qinggu closed her eyes in thought for a bit before finally shaking her head and saying, but to develop this kind of complex war weapon, even with smart brains' help, it requires large amounts of people, large amounts of resources, and large amounts of money. I'm afraid Miracle Commerce doesn't have enough people to support this kind of project and funds will be tight, so I don't think it's time yet. Chu Tian was a bit puzzled. We're taking in the gnomes, would we still lack talents? Although there are many gnome scholars, they haven't worked in Miracle Commerce before, so they don't understand our technology. They need time to adapt and learn. Not to mention that Miracle Commerce has too many research projects. Even if we have the gnome scholars, we still lack talents in some special fields. Resources and funds were also a problem. This was not something as simple as making an energy sword or an energy shield. Was he too impatient? Chu Tian was thinking about how to solve this problem when Vivian suddenly called him. She excitedly shouted, the source stones in the Eternal Forest have already been stored in the warehouse. My royal father and I are in Miracle City, where are you? Quickly come. Elven King. Chu Tian fell into deep thought. Lancelot was a very open ruler. He was more determined to reform the elves than bringing the ancient tree of life back to the Eternal Forest. This was because this young elven king was very clear that if the Eternal Forest obtained the ancient tree of life, they would have to isolate themselves for a long time. Would the elves be able to sit back and relax with a single ancient tree of life? Impossible. The protection the ancient tree of life gave the elves would only make the elves more isolated from the world. This kind of isolation was very terrifying. The continent's spirit beasts and humans were developing like the sun in the sky, and the former overlords of the elves were gradually being marginalized. If they didn't change this situation, the elves would become a weak small race in 10,000 years. If the Elven King wanted to reform, Miracle City was the key. Then why didn't Miracle City use the Eternal Forest's resources? The elves had more high-level talents than the gnomes, and the resources the elves had could be counted on one hand. Chapter 498. The Source Stones have been loaded. Vivian personally counted the Source Stones several times to make sure there wasn't a single one missing before running to Chu Tian to report. I asked Big Brother to check. No need, no need. Vivian is one of us, could she be unreliable? Vivian's heart felt warm as she happily said, of course, I'm a person of Miracle City in life and a ghost of Miracle City in death. I won't do anything bad to Miracle City. Big Brother Chu Tian, please trust me. The Elven King couldn't help giving a soft cough. Did this girl even forget what race she was? Miracle Bank's Source Stone reserves instantly increased by over 100,000. This was enough to cover the bad debts and make up for the losses from the war, stabilizing Miracle City's financial situation. Miracle City could boldly use this money. Chu Tian wasn't afraid of not being able to pay them back in a year. The Elven King's efficiency is higher than expected, so I won't hesitate. Yingying, take out the smart brain. Meng Yingying took out the smart brain and placed it in front of the Elven King. Your Majesty, this is the newest smart brain produced by Miracle Commerce. Its performance has been slightly increased and it can calculate 1,300,000,000 times per second. The smart body has been trained and can recognize orders and learn, but it still needs to be trained. If there are any problems in the future that need to be repaired or if you need to increase its speed, our Miracle City will take care of it. There will be no after-sales fees. This transaction was clearly not worth it. 150,000 Source Stones in Miracle Bank would cost several tens of thousands of Source Stones a year, and using several tens of thousands of Source Stones to buy a smart brain was a loss no matter how one looked at it. This was because with Miracle Commerce's current manufacturing ability, with an intelligent factory, a smart brain would only cost several hundred Source Stones at most. This debt couldn't be calculated like this. The so-called rare things were precious. Other than Miracle City, the Eternal Forest was the first place to have a smart brain. It would be much easier to manage them in the future. The Elven King would have more time to do other things. It seemed like it was worth it. Anyways, there was no use piling up Source Stones in the Eternal Forest. Chu Tian then said, I am a person who knows how to repay gratitude. The Elven King has helped Miracle City pass through a large problem, so Miracle City is filled with gratitude. There is a plan to deepen our cooperation with the Eternal Forest. I wonder if the elves are interested. What was this guy up to? Your Majesty, the Elven King is very clear that Miracle Commerce has countless cutting-edge technologies, but it lacks enough resources and ability, so Miracle Commerce's expansion in the Forest of Chaos has been blocked. The Eternal Forest is the opposite. You have tens of thousands of years of accumulated resources and many large forest cities. You have a large influence in the Forest of Chaos, but you haven't used your resources to their full potential. The Elf King looked at him strangely. You want to, if the two clans join hands and help each other, wouldn't the situation change drastically? Chu Tian didn't like to beat around the bush. He went straight to the point and said, let's work together to develop the forest. I'll provide all kinds of technology, and you'll provide manpower and resources. For example, the Eternal Forest stored large amounts of spatial crystals and there were many rare innate spatial energy users. They wouldn't be used in the Eternal Forest for 100 years, but they were incomparably precious resources for Miracle City. If the Elven King takes them out and we provide the spatial technology, we can build a large number of transport towers and space warehouses in the forest in a short period of time, creating considerable value. Wouldn't that be a win-win situation? There was a flash of light in the Elven King's eyes. It was like what Chu Tian said, this was a large win for both sides. The elves' wealth and resources were just hoarding, there was no way they could create any value. Although Miracle City had large amounts of products and technology, they were lacking in power and background, so it was impossible for them to develop in the forest in a short period of time. In this kind of situation, if both sides cooperated, how could they not advance by leaps and bounds? Vivian exclaimed, "That's a great idea. Royal Father, let's do it. The elves have many talents. Rather than wasting them, it's better to have them work for Miracle City." Chu Tian saw the Elven King's interest and immediately struck while the iron was hot. This way they can display their individual value and also bring benefits to the elves. Then, what kind of people do you want? As long as they are knowledgeable and have genuine skills, such as proficient in the principles of array glyphs and medicine, they are all fine. In addition, special talents such as space attribute, spirit attribute, life attribute, the more the better. I want all of them. Your appetite is too big. There are many talents in the elves and most of them are famous people. If the council finds out and rejects this, I'm afraid this matter won't be easy to solve. Chu Tian shrugged, this will depend on the Elven King's methods. I believe that everything the Elven King does, it will shine for generations to come. As the most important reformer in the history of the elves, why do you care about these obstacles? A king should have the aggressiveness and boldness of a king. The Elven King gave a soft snort, it's easy for you to say. I saw the Elven King help me before, so I sincerely want to cooperate with the Eternal Forest. If the Elven King can't even make a decision on this kind of matter, I can only go to Dragon City to cooperate with the Dragon Lord. Chu Tian spread out his hands like he didn't care. The Dragon Lord's resources are not less than the Eternal Forests and the Dragon Lord definitely cannot resist making money. Big brother Chu Tian, don't. Vivian scratched her head in worry, especially when she heard that Chu Tian was prepared to cooperate with the Black Dragon. She was very worried. We can't be tied down by those old men anymore. What are you worried for, girl? This brat's words were at most half believed. Cooperating with the Dragon Lord, only he could think of this. Cooperation needed strength to support it. Miracle City was so weak and wanted to negotiate with the Dragon's Ridge, how could they obtain fair treatment? Who didn't know about the Black Dragon's greed in the forest? Not to mention that Deathwing was eyeing Miracle City. Wasn't this asking a tiger for its skin? Miracle City chose to cooperate with the Eternal Forest, so they could only cooperate with the Eternal Forest. Alright, you don't need to provoke me. The Elven King said to Chu Tian, let's talk about the plan first. The elves will take out their spatial crystals to build transport towers and will first build a transport network in the forest. Other than that, the elves will send as many innate spatial energy users into Miracle City. Vivian will lead the development of space warehouses and the logistics network. Other than that, the elves must support Miracle City's communication infrastructure and the surrounding elven cities. Logistics, people, and information. This was the foundation of all development. This isn't a problem. The Elven King nodded. How will the benefits from the transport towers and space warehouses be divided? Miracle Commerce will take 80%, the Eternal Forest will take 20%. Other than that, the elves can only use and receive dividends, they don't have the right to manage it. This is too harsh. The Elven King's expression changed, but he didn't get angry with his self-control. The Eternal Forest will only take 20% with their manpower and effort. Don't you feel that Miracle Commerce is earning a bit too much? Chu Tian revealed a sincere look. You have to understand that spatial crystals are very precious, but it isn't impossible to buy them with Miracle Commerce's material channels in the outside world. Other than providing the most important technology, Miracle Commerce will also provide the core material, the Eye of the Star, as well as the Smart Brains control system. These are all irreplaceable things. Don't forget that without the elf support, Miracle Commerce will find it hard to develop in the Forest of Chaos. Without the Eternal Forest's support and permission, Miracle Commerce can't develop in the elves' territory, isn't that right? The Elven King said, 60-40. The elves have made enough concessions and I hope Miracle Commerce can show some expression. Chu Tian calmly shook his head. Your Majesty Elven King, in terms of our need for each other, the elves are more dependent on Miracle City. If there wasn't Miracle City's support, I don't know how long it would take for your reforms to be realized. As for Miracle Commerce? With the Trent's protection, at least we can control a region, so it doesn't matter if our development is slow. In the worst case, Miracle Commerce can give up on Miracle City. With our team and technology, where can't we go on the continent? So we have no reason to give in. The Elven King gave in again with a frown, 70-30. Chu Tian was still unmoved. Your Majesty Elven King should think about it again. This kind of profit sharing, is it really what the Eternal Forest and the elves need? Wrong, very wrong. After we cooperate, the elves will obtain the rights to use the transport tower and the space warehouse. You should understand that compared to the direct benefits of this technology, the added value and derivative value are the most precious. The so-called dividends refer to the future benefits of the transport tower and the space warehouse. The so-called rights to use the transport tower and the space warehouse to directly eat them. For example, the transport tower could transport 100 people a day, the elves had 20% of the rights and the elves could use it 20 times. As long as the procedures were completed, they could directly eat it without needing to report it. The rights to use the space warehouse were the same. It was like what Chu Tian said, to the elves, the transport tower and the space warehouse were not attractive. What was truly attractive was the development of the elven cities, breaking the elves' countless years of closed barriers in terms of people and materials. Chu Tian calculated that the Elven King couldn't refuse, so he gave this kind of harsh condition. Miracle City wouldn't let outsiders use too much of this technology. 20% was Chu Tian's bottom line, he couldn't increase it any further. The Elven King saw that he couldn't persuade this fellow no matter what, so he could only helplessly say with a sigh, "All right, I have a request. We must develop the Elven area first. When the Elven area is complete, we can use the extra resources to develop the surrounding areas. Other than that, we will build an Elven small town on the edge of the Miracle Forest. I hope that Miracle City can give us some convenience. Finally, I hope that Miracle City can lift the ban on a few products in the Eternal Forest, like the source energy weapons and smart brains." No problem. The three powers were keeping a close eye on Miracle City. Other than the Elven-controlled areas, it was hard to develop in other areas. They would first connect Miracle City to the elves and it wouldn't be too late to expand after they had a certain amount of strength. The Elven King and Miracle City completed an agreement. Miracle City would add 10 transport towers and 50 space warehouses in the Forest of Chaos Elven area. Other than that, they would increase the signal coverage area by 30 times, adding 100 arenas, trial fields, shopping centers, and hotels. The main area would be controlled by the elves and all the manpower and resources would be paid for by the elves. Miracle City would allow the Eternal Forest to develop an elven small town with 10,000 people in a small forest near the city. The small town would pay taxes to Miracle City, but it wouldn't be controlled by Miracle City's management. Other than that, Miracle City would open some uncommercialized products to the elves, including the source energy weapons, smart brains, and etc. Even if the Elven King didn't mention these things, Miracle Commerce would sell them in the future. After all, these things weren't a small amount of wealth. After the Elven King obtained several permits from Chu Tian, it was unknown what method he used to pass the meeting. The first batch of several thousand Eternal Forest elves quickly moved to the Elven small town, including several hundred talents that Chu Tian wanted. Everything was proceeding smoothly. Miracle Commerce had a deep cooperation with the Eternal Forest. If they borrowed the elves' power to expand, Miracle Commerce's influence in the Forest of Chaos would become unprecedentedly strong. However, when Chu Tian was busy making conditions with the Eternal Forest, there was some urgent news coming from the Great Zhou country. Chapter 499. The Great Zhou country had previously sent news that Qin Bingyu, Yin Spirit, and Yoda's group had a conflict with the 5 spiritual mountains. Although the situation was very tense, they hadn't fought yet. Yoda had locked onto the great Zhou royal family ruins at this time. Since he locked onto it, he would go find it. What was so strange about it? Actually, before heading to the ruins, Yoda felt a strong sense of danger. You know that the druid's prophetic ability is very special. Since he could feel danger, it meant that this trip was very dangerous. Therefore, Yoda was prepared. If he didn't return to the Heavenly Yin Mountains in 3 days, the Black Moon sect would contact us for help. Then how many days have passed? We've lost contact for around 5 days. 5 days? What is going on? Meng Qinggu knit her brows and her expression became a bit serious as she said with a face of worry, from the situation from that side, Yoda's group seemed to have just left the Heavenly Yin Mountains when they were attacked and chased down. The Heavenly Yin sect was surrounded by the 5 large sects and this battle has lasted for several days. Our side is also in chaos, so the information has been delayed. Did something happen to them? I don't think so. They have transport scrolls and at least have the ability to escape, so they must have been trapped for some reason. But it is very strange. Yoda is a spirit transformation expert, there shouldn't be an expert that can suppress him in the Great Zhou country. Chu Tian thought about it for a few seconds. This matter is very strange. Have Nangong quickly gather some people, I want to personally take a look. Miracle City's matters had been very complicated recently. Not only did they have to monitor the 3 large powers, they also had to speed up their cooperation with the elves. However, they had to take a look at the Great Zhou country now, so Chu Tian could only leave everything to Meng Qinggu. It was a good thing Meng Qinggu handled matters quickly. There were more and more smart brains in the city, so there shouldn't be any problems. When Nangong Yun heard that there was a fight, she immediately called several dozen people over. These people were all experts in the 3rd true spirit layer or above, all peak experts in Miracle City. Chu Tian found the little fox that was stealing food in the garden and they all teleported to the Great Zhou country without saying anything else. Endless Yin saw Chu Tian's group arrive and he quickly excitedly came forward. Why are you only here now? The sect master had been missing for 5 whole days. Heavenly Yin Mountain has already been besieged for 5 days, if this continues, we won't be able to hold on. I'm sorry. Chu Tian could only wave his hand. Miracle City also met a bit of trouble, haven't they just calmed down? Yin spirit will be fine, tell me the situation first. Chu Tian looked around and found that the Heavenly Yin Mountain had changed quite a bit. There were holes in the surrounding mountains from the intense battle and the main peak of the Heavenly Yin Mountain also had many signs of battle. The buildings in front of the mountain gate had been completely destroyed and the plaza was covered in cracks from the tremors, just like after an earthquake. There were some places where the marks were very fresh, with flames and ashes still floating in the air. Fuck, what's going on? Endless Yin spoke of the matter with a depressed expression. After the Black Moon sect decided to support the rebuilding of the Great Zhou royal family, they were immediately opposed by the other sections. Of course, this is to be expected. Originally, the mysterious dark sect could have used their century-old relationship to pull 1 or 2 of the 5 biggest sects to be neutral or support us. In this way, they could have avoided a battle. Then how did it become like this? We don't know what happened. The stalemate wasn't bad and your Miracle City's prophet Yoda found the ruins. When they left the Heavenly Yin Mountain to explore the ruins, there were no signs at all. Endless Yin's face was very ugly. The 5 great sects worked together to attack the Heavenly Yin Mountain. If it wasn't for the Heavenly Yin Mountain sect protecting array, perhaps this place would have been blown to pieces. Beaten to this state in just a few days. Nangong Yun had a look of disdain. What about the 10,000-year-old sect protecting array of your Heavenly Yin Mountain? Is that thing made of paper? Don't speak nonsense. Endless Yin and the Black Moon sect's elders were filled with anger. Damn, if it wasn't for you people, how could the Heavenly Yin Mountain offend the other 5 spiritual mountains at the same time? If it wasn't to help some bullshit Great Zhou royal family restore their country, the Black Moon sect wouldn't have to fight so many people. Endless Yin explained with a calm face. in these few battles, we found a very strange phenomenon. The 5 great sects have large amounts of tamed demon beasts helping them fight. This kind of fighting style is very rare in the Great Zhou country, and most of the demon beasts they use aren't from the Great Zhou country. Other than that, there are many mysterious experts among them. What experts? We can't be sure. The only thing we can be sure of is that we've never seen these experts before, because whether it is their fighting style or techniques, they aren't like Great Zhou people. There were many experts in the 6 famous mountains of the Great Zhou country, and these experts understood each other very well. Even if they hadn't fought before, they would at least understand each other's styles and could recognize each other when they had a chance to interact. However, these mysterious people's styles were different from the Great Zhou countries. They definitely weren't normal Great Zhou experts. Endless Yin's face became uglier and uglier. The previous wave of attacks has just ended. If my guesses aren't wrong, they will soon launch a new wave of attacks. There's this kind of thing. Chu Tian patted the little white fox on his shoulder. Fox, go take a look at them. The fox opened its divine eye and looked at the cultivator camps around the heavenly Yin mountains. There were around 400,000-500,000 of them, and they were all elites from large sections. When the fox looked at the center, it suddenly discovered something. It suddenly raised its head and waved its claws like a hungry wolf, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. What? You're talking about spirit beasts? The little fox nodded its head. Nangong Yun said in a surprised voice, isn't the Great Zhou country a human kingdom? I've never heard of spirit beasts appearing in the mirror before. It's not strange. The Great Zhou country borders the Eagle Burial Kingdom to the north, the Warhounds Plains to the northwest, and the Forest of Chaos to the south. Spirit beasts can come from these places, so it's not strange for spirit beasts to appear in the Great Zhou country. But Chu Tian narrowed his eyes and said, these spirit beasts aren't natives of the forest and aren't remnants of the Warhounds Plains. Nangong Yun blurted out, they're people from the Eagle Burial Kingdom. Chu Tian nodded, most likely. I never thought that the Eagle Burial Kingdom's tentacles would stretch even further than we imagined. If the Eagle Burial Kingdom's influence is involved, the Great Zhou country's situation will become even more complicated. What do we do now? What can we do now? We'll talk after we take care of the people at the bottom of the mountain. Endless Yin saw that when Chu Tian said this, it was as easy as drinking a cup of water in front of him. He couldn't help revealing a look of disbelief. Are you crazy? These are the elites of the 5 great sects. It is already hard for us to defend against them, not to mention taking care of them. What are you shouting about? Nangong Yun seemed to be even angrier than when she was questioned. If boss says it's fine, then it's fine. Shut your fucking mouth, otherwise don't blame this old lady for beating you until you're half paralyzed. With Nangong Yun's fiery temper, she wouldn't hesitate to fight. Endless Yin could also feel that this fiery red-haired woman was a bit stronger than Chen Bingyu. With Endless Yin's strength, he definitely wasn't her match, not to mention that Nangong Yun brought several dozen subordinates who were all experts of miracle commerce. He had to lower his head under the eaves. Boss, how do you think we should take care of them? These people have an overwhelming advantage over the heavenly Yin mountain, so they are a bit lax. Almost all of their people are stationed in the same valley. Nangong, tell Yingying to send some things over, we'll need them soon. 2 hours later. Chu Tian took out 5 sets of source energy weapons from the space warehouse. When they were put together, they were actually 5 missile launchers. Miracle Commerce had missile weapons a long time ago, but they were very low grade before, but the situation was different now. Boss, the control panel is ready. Nangong Yun stood in front of a temporary platform with giant black boxes around her. This was clearly a super source energy matrix, and the control panel itself was a miniature undead tower. Open Smart Brain and the control panel. Alright. Smart Brain was awakened and immediately said, hello Sir City Lord, I am Smart Brain number 3 and my main ability is to manage the weapon system. What can I do for you? Chu Tian pointed at the densely packed life signs on the radar. Use the snake-scorpion missile and kill these fellows. Understood, Sir City Lord. Distance 56. 3,121 kilometers, currently simulating the best trajectory. Finished. Launch the snake-scorpion creature poison missile. The 5 missile launchers began to adjust their direction and paused for 3-4 seconds. Suddenly, all the missile launchers shook, and each launcher shot out 5 to 6 slender missiles. These missiles came from Great Summer Qing State. Great Summer Qing State's Green Ridge was ravaged by snake-scorpion beasts all year round. Chu Tian and Chen Bingyu had almost suffered a large loss, but Miracle Commerce found that the snake-scorpion beast's poison was an extremely strong paralyzing poison. It could spread over a large area in a short period of time, paralyzing soldiers to death. Therefore, researchers collected large amounts of the snake-scorpion beast's poison. They first added several strong paralysis toxins to the snake-scorpion beast's poison before refining it into a highly concentrated liquid. Finally, it was compressed into a missile, creating this era's biological weapon. This kind of weapon was cheap to make and was relatively simple. The only flaw was that it was easy to accidentally injure people because the snake-scorpion missile's compressed poison was very volatile. As long as a missile exploded in a group of people, it would instantly cover over 1,000 meters, poisoning everyone. Before the Smart Brains control launch pad was researched, there was no possibility of this type of weapon being used in practice. Today could be considered the first test. Chapter 500. The sky gradually darkened and dusk approached. The cultivators of the 5 Spirit Mountains were planning a new round of attacks in the camp. The Black Moon Sect's formation has clearly weakened after a few rounds of attacks, but the Heavenly Yin Mountain will recover faster at night, so we have to break through the Black Moon Sect before it gets dark. The Heavenly Sword Sect and the Black Tortoise Sect will attack from the front. The Divine Secret Sect will be responsible for restraining the Heavenly Yin Mountain's corpse puppets, the Void Spirit Cave will be responsible for breaking the formation, and the Medicine King Valley will be responsible for supporting them. What does everyone think? No problem. The Great Zhou Country's 6 great sects, Heavenly Sword Sect, Divine Machine Sect, Black Moon Sect, Black Tortoise Sect, Void Spirit Cave, and Medicine King Valley. Every sect's inheritance was different. The Heavenly Sword Sect was the oldest of the 6 sects, and they were the strongest. They were all sword cultivators with extremely strong offensive abilities. The Divine Machine Sect was good at the art of puppets, the Black Moon Sect was good at refining corpses with evil methods, the Black Tortoise Sect had amazing physical strength, the Void Spirit Cave was good at formations and refining weapons, and the Medicine King Valley was good at refining medicine. How could the Black Moon Sect resist the combined forces of the 5 sects? The sect master of the Divine Machine Sect was a man dressed like an iron bucket. Because not an inch of his skin was exposed, his appearance could not be seen clearly. However, judging from his burly figure, he should be a burly man. There were dozens of people sitting next to this sect master, and each of them was dressed similarly. They were all dressed like iron buckets. This person was called Yuanjinnan, and was only at the rank 2 true spirit. In the other 5 sects, this was the level of an elder. There were only a few people in the Divine Armament sect who had reached the true spirit realm, and their overall cultivation was the weakest among the 6 sections. However, the strength of the Divine Armament Hall was not to be underestimated. Why is your Heavenly Sword sect master absent for such an important battle? Yuan Jinan looked at the Heavenly Sword sect's people and said, "Are these foreign consecrators reliable?" The members of the Heavenly Sword sect were all dressed like sword cultivators. Every one of them carried a sword on their back and wore blue or white robes. Their leader was a middle-aged sword cultivator who looked to be in his 40s. His eyes were like lightning and his bearing was extraordinary. He was the vice sect master of the Heavenly Sword sect, Ling Ying. The Medicine King Valley's Valley Master Wang Tianyun, the Void Spirit Cave's Gu Lianshan, the Black Tortoise Sect's Sect Master Jin Kuei, these famous Great Zhou Country characters were all gathered here at this moment. The sect master of the Heavenly Rapier sect did not come. Don't worry, sect leader Yuan. We can't all attack the Black Moon sect. Who's going to hunt down the remnants of the previous dynasty? Sect master has the deepest relationship with the Shin family, so of course this matter needs to be handled personally. The Heavenly Sword sect's vice sect master Ling Ying shook his head and said, as for the Heavenly Sword sect's foreign consecrators, everyone has seen their strength the last few times. If it weren't for the help of these experts, how could the Black Moon sect's great formation be broken so easily? Indeed. Each and every one of these foreign experts was very powerful. The cave master of the Void Spirit Cave, Gu Lianshan, was a short old man. At this moment, he was looking at the silent figures wearing cloaks beside Ling Ying with a fearful gaze. Your Heavenly Sword sect's strength is not weak, and these few years, you have also found many worshippers from other countries. It seems that your growth is a bit too fast. According to our agreement, after attacking the Black Moon sect, the spoils of war will be divided between our 4 sections. I hope that the Heavenly Sword sect will not break the agreement. Ha ha ha. Ling Ying laughed. Cave master is worrying too much. The Heavenly Sword sect has always abided by the agreement. The Heavenly Sword sect will not take anything from the Black Moon sect. The other sect leaders couldn't help letting out a sigh of relief. The Heavenly Sword sect was the head of the great Zhou country's 6 spiritual mountains. Their strength was already very strong. In recent years, they had been recruiting foreign experts, becoming stronger and stronger, attracting the attention of the other sections. Fortunately, the Heavenly Sword sect seemed to be tactful. They seemed to know the consequences of growing too fast, so they used the Black Moon sect's inexplicable provocation as an excuse to join the other 4 powers to attack the Black Moon sect. They promised to divide the Black Moon sect and the Heavenly Sword sect wouldn't take anything. They would swallow a large power to strengthen the other 4 powers, restoring the balance of power in the great Zhou country. They discussed their tactics. The cultivator army prepared to gather. At this time, something unexpected happened. Countless figures appeared in the surrounding basin, led by a group of fiery red figures covered in runes. They charged at the group of people. Hung, hung, hung. The exploding corpses opened up a gap and thousands of Yin corpses wildly jumped into the basin. The Black Moon sect had launched a sneak attack. The cultivators of the 5 mountains clearly did not expect the Black Yin sect to launch a counterattack, so their defense was clearly inferior. The Black Yin sect's sneak attack was also extremely crafty. They attacked the weakest part of their defense as if they had foreseen it, causing them to be somewhat flustered. Yuan Jinan said with a face filled with shock, "Are the Heavenly Yin mountain people crazy? They're sending themselves to death without using the array. Charge for me. Destroy them." The cultivators of the 5 mountains reacted, but they didn't have time to counterattack. Several objects with faint white flames appeared above the basin, quickly flying at the cultivators. What are those things? Who cares, shoot them down. The Heavenly Sword sect expert's sword flew out. Although the missiles were fast, they couldn't be faster than the swords of a true spirit realm sword cultivator. Peng, peng, peng. Several explosions rang out. Several waves of missiles were destroyed above the basin. Nangong Yun saw this from afar and said in a regretful voice, "Damn, none of them hit." Miracle Commerce's technology was growing day by day. With the detection radar, supercomputers, and enough energy, as well as smart brains controlling them, the missiles had a high chance of hitting targets several hundred miles away. However, the missile's weakness was very clear because it was a physical weapon that was easy to block. True spirit realm cultivators could break the speed of sound and their reaction speed was 3-4 times the speed of sound. Therefore, if they wanted to kill a true spirit realm expert with a missile, they needed to reach 5 times the speed of sound. The Snake Scorpion missile could only reach 1 or 2 times the speed of sound, so it wasn't strange for it to be shot down by a sword cultivator that could use a flying sword. Don't be anxious. Chu Tian was not anxious at all. The Snake Scorpion missile doesn't rely on explosions to deal with enemies. About 100 snake and scorpion snake missiles were intercepted and blown up in the sky above the basin. Due to the chaos in the basin, and the cultivators of the 5 mountains were busy dealing with the sneak attack of the mysterious dark sect, no one noticed that when these missiles were destroyed, a large amount of highly compressed poison sprayed out from them. These solid poisons quickly liquefied in the high temperature of the explosion and released a strong stream of air. It was transparent and hard to see with the naked eye, but it spread very quickly, covering the entire basin in just a short while. Ah! Careful! There's poison! The cultivators cried out in shock. The snake-scorpion beast's poison was a very fast poison. It was already too late when they found out they were poisoned. Chen Bingyu was almost killed by this poison in Qing state, not to mention that it had been strengthened by miracle commerce. The cultivators of the 5 mountains were mainly awakened soul cultivators. How could they resist this kind of biological weapon? It was already too late for these people to react. The entire basin was like wheat being cut down, falling down in batches. Quickly! Charge out! The elders of the 5 large sects wanted to escape with their disciples, but the Yin corpses controlled by the Black Moon sect kept chasing them. With every second that passed, thousands of cultivators lost their battle strength. The entire basin was in chaos and it was only a matter of time before they were completely wiped out. This is the main battle strength of the Great Zhou country. They're really too weak. Nan Gongyun thought there would be a large battle, but the result was a one-sided battle. This was a bit too boring. Chu Tian shook his head. The Great Zhou country is still a large country and the 6 spiritual mountains are the Great Zhou country's standard. I don't think they can't even take a single hit. As if he wanted to confirm this, as soon as he finished speaking, a strange change occurred. Countless black and gray figures flew out of the basin like a swarm of locusts. Nan Gongyun was shocked. What kind of monsters are these? This batch of flying things were all strangely shaped. Some of them were as big as elephants, while some were extremely petite. Most of them were shaped like giant apes, mantises, and so on. Each of their bodies was wrapped in precious light, and a large number of glowing runes were engraved on them. With a series of ka-ka sounds, a pair of huge wings drilled out from their backs. This is a mechanical armor made from mechanical techniques. It can fly, dive, as well as have various arrays and restrictions engraved on it, so it's no wonder it wasn't affected by the poison mist. Chu Tian rubbed his chin. Not bad, their mechanical techniques are much higher than I imagined. This is the ability of Tong Xiaoyu and the others. Nan Gongyun was very shocked. There aren't many of them in the Great Summer Country, but this Great Zhou country has this many. These were the Divine Machine Sect's mechanical masters. Although mechanical techniques were a small skill, mechanical masters that were proficient in mechanical construction were one of the most scarce talents in miracle commerce. Miracle commerce had already accumulated enough technology. Chu Tian wanted to develop large-scale weapons, airships, and fortresses, so he needed large amounts of mechanical masters. Miracle commerce's mechanical masters were very rare. There were only a few hundred of them. How could this be enough? The Divine Machine sect had several 100,000 mechanical masters. If Chu Tian could control the Great Zhou country, he would be able to absorb more experienced mechanical masters. Miracle Commerce's talents would increase by 10 to 100 times and their future design and manufacturing abilities would increase by several folds. This also strengthened Chu Tian's determination to take care of the Great Zhou country. After the mechanical masters ignored the poison, there were people from other sects that escaped, with most of them being people from the Medicine King Valley. It was probably because the Medicine King Valley was proficient in alchemy, so they had the habit of carrying all kinds of antidotes, so they could resist the poison. These people quickly organized themselves to counterattack. How could Chu Tian let them succeed? Prepare the source energy cannons and destructive missiles. I want to see if their turtle shell can block Miracle Commerce's bombardment. The missile launchers were already loaded with missiles. Several dozen source energy cannons were placed in designated positions. With Chu Tian's order, a round of terrifying bombardment began. The great Zhou country had never fought with Miracle Commerce before, so they didn't know anything about Miracle Commerce's weapons. There weren't many weapons transported in the space warehouse, but it was enough to teach them an unforgettable lesson. Chapter 501. Several large destructive missiles were controlled by the smart brain. Their speed, trajectory, and attack positions were all carefully calculated, so they attacked the weakest and had the highest chance of hitting. Several large flame clouds rose up, releasing large amounts of light and heat. The terrifying explosion created a terrifying killing effect, but it also created a dark shadow that covered everyone's hearts. After analyzing the enemy's situation with the radar, they found a way to break through. They immediately placed the destructive machine guns on the path and countless energy bullets rained down like a storm, suppressing them. What kind of weapon was this? It was actually this fierce and terrifying. We can't continue to be trapped here. The Heavenly Sword Sect's Vice Sect Master Ling Ying used a secret sound transmission technique to shout out, "Divine Machine Sect, use the puppet beasts to break through, we and the Black Tortoise Sect will assist you." Alright. The mechanical armors that the mechanical masters wore were just a set of defensive equipment, the ones that were truly fighting were the puppet beasts in the hands of the mechanical masters. These puppet beasts came in all shapes and sizes, some were like large birds, some were like tigers and leopards, some flew in the sky, some ran on the ground, and some swam in the water. There was nothing they didn't have, but they all had different functions. The Medicine King Valley threw a pill to the other sects. This is an antidote pill, it can temporarily resist the poison. Everyone attacked together. Hurricane God Shield Talisman. The Void Spirit Caves people threw out talismans without caring about the cost. This talisman can form a hurricane shield, it can greatly increase one's speed. Not only can it defend against the poison, it can also defend against fierce attacks. The puppet beasts are coming. Advance. Be careful, they're sending out strange fire arrows again. Heavenly Sword Sect, Sword Array. Countless swords turned into intertwining streams of light, instantly sweeping away the incoming missiles. The Black Tortoise Sect relied on their strong defense and speed to defend the left, right, and back, blocking the Een Corps's harassment and sneak attacks. Although it was very chaotic, the strength of the 5 sects was still displayed. The mechanical beasts and the Black Tortoise Sect's soldiers stared at the rain of bullets, with several tens of thousands of cultivators following behind, forming a force to break through. If they broke through the blockade, it would be hard to predict the outcome of this battle. At this moment, Nangong Yun had already prepared several source energy cannons. When she saw the 5 mountain cultivators steadily advancing against the rain of bullets, she immediately raised her hand, "Fire. Send them all back for me." The might of the source energy cannons could be imagined. More than a dozen light balls turned into a beam of bright white light, tearing apart and evaporating the hurricane god shield on the puppet beasts' bodies. The various defensive restrictions on the puppet beasts' bodies didn't work as well. At least 100 puppet beasts were blasted into charcoal and broken pieces. This attack did not just destroy the mechanical beasts. The white light incinerated everything it came into contact with. As long as it was a body of flesh and blood, as long as it had water in its body, it would not be able to remain unscathed under such an attack. It was as easy as crushing dry weeds. Like a hot knife through butter. Nangong Yun saw that he had successfully stopped the other party from advancing, and immediately laughed proudly. "These guys are not very strong, I think they are not even as strong as the troops of the 4 major cities. Hit him. Hit him hard." The source energy cannons fired again. Another wave of mechanical beast puppets was destroyed. Yuan Jinnan's eyes were red. It wasn't easy to make these puppet beasts. Most of them were left behind by their ancestors. Now, in the face of such a terrifying attack, they were as fragile as paper. Every cannon blast not only destroyed the walking puppets, but also the foundation of the Divine Machine Sect. He was already regretting participating in this battle. Of course, the Medicine King Valley, the Void Spirit Cave, and the Black Tortoise sect were all regretting following the Heavenly Sword sect to attack the Black Moon sect. On one hand, they had heavy firepower, and on the other hand, there was a strong poison gas. Now more and more disciples were being poisoned. This was a large loss to the sect. When had the Black Moon sect ever seen such a shocking scene? Chu Tian had only brought a few people and a few pieces of equipment, but he was actually able to suppress the cultivators of the 5 mountains. What are you standing there for? Chu Tian reprimanded the stunned Endless Yin. Our firepower and ammunition are pretty much used up. Are you just going to stand here and watch, or are you waiting for them to break through? Only a fool would give up on this kind of good chance. Endless Yin came to his senses and shouted, Heavenly Yin Mountain successors, it is time to defend the Black Moon sect. Everyone prepare yourselves, charge with me. The Black Moon sect's cultivators came out in full force, showing the spirit of beating a drowning dog. 5 against 1 did have an overwhelming advantage, but the 5 spiritual mountains couldn't come out in full force. When their attack was blocked and their morale fell, they would have thoughts of retreating. The Black Moon sect could not retreat, they could only fight with their backs against the wall. Great Heavenly Yin Array. Open. The Heavenly Yin Mountain's protective array was opened. Tens of thousands of cultivators poured out like a tide. Each person was covered in the glow of cultivation techniques and spirit energy, as well as various secret techniques. This was a clear contrast to the chaotic cultivators of the 5 mountains. The Black Moon sect had around 200,000 cultivators. The 5 mountains had around 400,000 cultivators. There was a large disparity in numbers, but there was a clear difference in their fighting spirit. When the Black Moon sect came out in full force to fight to the death, the cultivators of the 5 mountains began to feel fear. There were some people who couldn't help wanting to retreat. Don't panic. Ling Ying quickly shouted, they are seeking death by opening their gates. This is a good chance to destroy the Black Moon sect in one fell swoop. We have more people and more experts than them, what is there to be afraid of? Charge with me. Although he said this, would it be that easy? The cultivators of the 5 mountains were poisoned, injured, and running away. The entire situation was very chaotic. The Black Moon sect cultivators were coming with ferocious momentum and there was no time to put up any defenses. The Black Tortoise sect's Jean Kuei had a fierce expression, this will result in both sides suffering heavy losses. We can't fight anymore. No, it's too late to retreat now, we still have a chance. Ling Ying thought of something, the Heavenly Yin Mountain's restrictions have all been removed. If we go around, we will destroy the strange weapons. Without the support of these weapons, we might have a chance of winning. The others looked at each other, all right. They could only do this. They had to risk it. Chu Tian was watching the situation from the Heavenly Yin Mountain, but Smart Brain sent out a warning, City Lord, there are many high-intensity signals approaching you, should we make any plans to block or evade them? I didn't go find them and instead they came to me. Chu Tian laughed, no need, let them come. Roar, roar, roar. Several dozen demon beasts appeared in the center of the valley, all of them being powerful level 3 flying demon beasts. Each demon beast was carrying several cloaked figures, as well as the leaders of the 5 great sections. They went around the battlefield and headed for the Heavenly Yin Mountain, heading for Chu Tian's position. They were all true spirit realm experts. Even if these true experts were in the poison mist, they could still resist the poison, so most of them were fine. Die, you scoundrel. Ling Ying stood on the back of a golden eagle and charged at the very front. From a distance of several hundred meters, he thrust out a giant sword light. If one looked closely, they would find that this sword was formed from tens of thousands of swords. In the end, it became a giant sword that was several tens of meters long, and it flew towards Chu Tian's position with a destructive force. Such strong sword chi. The number 1 sword cultivator sect of the Great Zhou dynasty really does have some skill. Nangong Yun stepped off the ground and soared into the air, not dodging at all as he sent out a fist. A fire phoenix flew out from the burning body and collided with the huge sword. The two forces collided and shattered at the same time. Countless tiny sword chis pierced through the flames and fell on Nangong Yun's body like raindrops. Although Nangong Yun was forced to retreat again and again, it did not cause any damage. Ling Ying said with a cold smile, "You aren't people of the Great Zhou dynasty, why do you care about the Great Zhou dynasty's matters? I'm afraid that whatever Great Zhou princess was also created by you guys." Chu Tian calmly laughed a few times. Even if we rope in the Black Moon sect to support the Great Zhou kingdom, it is still better than the Heavenly Sword sect colluding with the Eagle Burial kingdom to divide the Great Zhou dynasty. What did you say? Yuan Jinan and the other elders and cultivators of the sect were shocked. If my guess isn't wrong. Chu Tian's eyes swept over the cloaked consecrators of the Heavenly Sword sect. These are all generals of the Eagle Burial kingdom. I think the Heavenly Sword sect has already been bribed, becoming spies for the Eagle Burial kingdom. You have been kept in the dark without knowing anything, perhaps you will regret it when your country perishes. How about you cooperate with my miracle city like the Black Moon sect and prosper together? The foreign consecrators that the Heavenly Sword sect found were people from the Eagle Burial kingdom? The Eagle Burial kingdom was one of the largest powers in the area and was ambitious to expand. If the Eagle Burial kingdom's influence entered the Great Zhou country, the situation would be very complicated. Yuan Jinnan's voice filled with doubt and anger came from the mechanical armor. Ling Ying, is this true? How do you explain this? Don't speak nonsense. Ling Ying's face turned livid. Look at them, not only is this person's weapon strange, his subordinates are all from different races, most likely from the Forest of Chaos. This is the so-called not of our race, we must have a different heart. Don't be fooled. These cloaked people controlled their demon beasts and several dozen fierce demon beasts attacked. Chu Tian was surrounded by experts from the forest, but he was lacking in numbers. If they directly fought, he would suffer a loss. The little fox wagged its tail and jumped out. Its body began to change shape, turning into a giant demonic fox. The Eagle Burial Kingdom's people were shocked to find that these shocking demon beasts had suddenly lost control at this moment. The little fox's power had easily seeped into these demon beasts. It had grown a lot in this period of time, and although it couldn't control several dozen powerful demon beasts at once, it was enough to make these demon beasts lose their minds and become wild. Roar! When the demon beasts went wild, they began to attack each other. Ling Ying's group had no choice but to give up their mounts and jump down to the ground. Don't leave a single one alive. Kill! Ling Ying slashed out with a sword that was like a river. Chu Tian pulled out the burning netherworld sword and turned into a streak of flame to meet it. The two swords collided in the air and instantly cancelled out all the energy. Damn, you think we're easy to bully. Nangong Yun loudly ordered the forest experts beside her, everyone follow me. Chapter 502. The Great Zhou's number 1 sect's vice-sect master Ling Ying was in the 4th true spirit layer. He was only a bit weaker than Yin spirit. The Heavenly Sword sect was a sword cultivation sect that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years in the Great Zhou country, so whether it was cultivation techniques or secret techniques, they could be taken out even on the continent. How could this kind of person be easily dealt with? Ling Ying cultivated an orthodox imperial sword technique. In the past, Central State's limitless genius Chu Xinghe also inherited an imperial sword technique, but the Heavenly Sword sect's inheritance was stronger and didn't stick to the form. There were more variations, so naturally it was stronger. Ever since Chu Tian left Great Summer, he hadn't had a good fight. Ling Ying used a sword and Chu Tian also used a sword. Where could he find this kind of good chance? Ling Ying flicked his wrist and sword light flashed, shooting out several dozen swords. Each one was condensed from strong sword chi and they all attacked Chu Tian in a tricky way. So fast. Chu Tian's body flashed with flames as he quickly retreated with the netherworld flickering flame. The several dozen swords missed and turned back into a single large sword. The sword glow soared into the air and Chu Tian couldn't hide anymore. He had no choice but to reveal himself and raise his sword with both hands to block. The ground around him began to crack. The ancient fierce sword pressure overturned the seas and rivers, almost slapping Chu Tian into the ground. Sword! Chu Tian gave a low roar and the demon god's sword flew into the sky. The sword aura suddenly increased by 10 times, blocking Ling Ying's casual slash. When the sword glow was blocked, it shattered and turned into countless intersecting sword chi, covering Chu Tian like a large net. This was a net made of sword chi. Ling Ying's hands came together and the sword net suddenly shrank. This was enough to crush Diamond to pieces. Chu Tian's body was protected by the Starlight Immortal Body, so even the power that could grind Diamond to dust couldn't cut a single hair on his body. However, this sword chi net was like a real net, actually binding Chu Tian's body to the point where he couldn't move. Chu Tian felt like he was being bound by white lights and no matter how much strength he used, he couldn't break free in a short period of time. The netherworld ghost flame could burn all energy. Although he managed to ignite the sword chi around him in time, the burning speed was extremely slow. You dare to challenge the heavenly rapier sect's swordsmanship with such little ability? I don't have time to play with you. Die! Ling Ying revealed an extremely disdainful expression. His right hand quickly sheathed his sword and his left hand formed a sword finger, minor phaseless void sword finger. He flicked his fingernail. Bang! Chu Tian's body suddenly erupted with sword chi. Even with the strong Starlight Immortal Body's defense, under this attack, it instantly dimmed. Chu Tian was sent flying by the violent energy and he heavily fell to the ground. Ling Ying's pupils shrank slightly. Why didn't he die? What kind of peerless defensive technique was this? It could even block the minor phaseless sword finger. The netherworld ghost flame exploded, instantly burning away the sword chi around him. Chu Tian stood in the raging flames and his body had already become a fist bigger. The flames covered his body like armor, making him look like a flaming demon at first glance. Good sword art, it's a pity you haven't practiced it enough. Is the Heavenly Rapier Sect's Supreme Minor Phaseless Sword something an ant like you can study? Although it can't be practiced to the large success realm like Senior Brother Sect Master, it's more than enough to kill a small character like you. Give it a try then. Chu Tian's figure turned into 6 and he immediately used his strongest sword move, First Eat My Move, Netherworld Clone Slash. Minor Phaseless Void Sword Finger. Ling Ying flicked his finger to attack, but he couldn't see the trajectory at all. Chu Tian's clones were hit by the sword chi at the same time and 5 of them were destroyed on the spot. The main body was sent flying and fell to the ground. He staggered back several steps and even the flame demon transformation was broken. So strong. He had never seen this kind of strange sword art before. Minor phaseless sword, colorless and formless, it was impossible to see, it was like its name. Ling Ying's sword art looked very simple, but it consumed a lot of spirit energy. He was in a rush to kill Chu Tian, so he didn't hesitate to use the phaseless sword twice. Who would have thought that this Heavenly Rapier Sect's secret technique wouldn't be able to injure this young brat? The minor phaseless sword was a peerless secret technique. Not to mention that Ling Ying's cultivation was above Chu Tian's. If this matter was spread out, no one would believe it. Chu Tian was also secretly shocked, this was his first time encountering a cultivation technique he couldn't see through. The minor phaseless sword did not have a trajectory and each time it was used, it would directly hit its target. Ling Ying's void sword finger against a normal person would definitely explode their body from the inside out. Because the Starlight Immortal Body had been cultivated to the perfection realm, its defensive abilities had already penetrated into his flesh and blood, penetrating into every cell, so it could block the might of the void sword finger. Otherwise, no matter how high the defensive technique was, it wouldn't be able to block this strange and formless attack. Chu Tian had underestimated the great Zhou country and this era. Minor phaseless void sword slash. Ling Ying's spirit energy filled his body and a sword source spirit appeared on the surface of his body, releasing a strong sword intent. With a flick of his wrist, the sword tip flew out from the ground. He still couldn't see the trajectory clearly. Danger! Chu Tian instinctively felt danger and quickly strengthened his defenses. Sure enough, a formless and formless sword glow pierced him. That formless and formless sword chi scattered the starlight immortal body's power and Chu Tian staggered back several steps. Blood leaked from the corner of his mouth and he was injured even with the starlight immortal body. You still want to fight? Ling Ying's forehead was covered in sweat, but his aura had reached its peak. He raised his sword and pointed it at Chu Tian. You can't even dodge my sword and you can't even get close to me, what do you have to fight me with? Hey, stop bluffing, Chu Tian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. If you could easily kill me, why would you waste your breath? You just want to buy some time to recover. Can this sword art really take my life in your hands? Ling Ying's eyes filled with rage, like he had been greatly insulted. Chu Tian continued to say, this sword art is too much of a waste in the heavenly sword mountain. It's better if I dig it up and personally practice it. It'll be good for it, don't you think so? Die! Ling Ying raised his sword and gathered his spirit energy again. When he was about to use the mysterious sword art again, he suddenly saw a glow in Chu Tian's eyes. Ling Ying suddenly felt a strong sense of danger approaching. He didn't even have time to react before the ground around him suddenly split open. 18 dark golden figures charged out. These were the 18 divine servants. The 18 divine servants had been strengthened and each one had reached the third true spirit layer. Now that they attacked unexpectedly, there was a chance they could kill him. Small phaseless sword slash. Ling Ying's reaction was very fast, slashing at 19 targets with a single slash. The small phaseless sword was not a single target sword art. This sword art was ever-changing and formless, therefore it wasn't strange for it to attack many targets at once. Only, the more targets it attacked, the weaker the sword move became. The 18 divine servants were all knocked back. Chu Tian was not injured at all from this slash, he had been waiting for this chance for a long time. Chu Tian flew out from the ground and a streak of sword chi instantly swept across Ling Ying like a rainbow. His body was split in half with a tremble. Ling Ying struggled a few times before revealing an unwilling expression. Whether it was cultivation or cultivation technique, he surpassed this person, so why did he still lose? Chu Tian held his chest and took 2 breaths. There was a green glow coming from his fingers, slowly healing his injuries. He didn't use his main source spirit in this battle not just to be low-key, but also because he felt this kind of troublesome opponent. He hadn't met one in a long time, so fighting this battle would increase his martial arts mental state by quite a bit. Nangong Yun was fighting with the Black Tortoise sect master Jin Kuei. The Great Zhou country was still a large country. Just like the Heavenly Sword sect's Ling Ying, the other sect masters were not normal people. Nangong Yun's cultivation was a bit higher than Chu Tian's and his source spirit cultivation technique was at the peak. If he didn't use his main source spirit, Nangong Yun's battle strength was much higher than Chu Tian's, but he could only fight Jin Kuei to a draw. The other 3 sect masters' battle strength wasn't simple either. The little fox controlled several demon beasts to tie down the Eagle Burial Kingdom generals. Looking at the overall situation, Chu Tian's side was at a disadvantage. The forest experts he brought from Miracle City were clearly weaker than them. Go! The 18 divine servants surrounded the leaders of the sections. The 18 divine servants were all in the third true spirit layer. Not only were they in the third true spirit layer, they were all very hard to deal with, not something these fellows could easily deal with. Nangong Yun instantly felt the pressure on her decrease. Chu Tian raised his sword and charged at the Eagle Burial Kingdom generals. The sword glow cut open the cloak of a mysterious person and the spirit beast revealed its true appearance. Open your eyes wide and look. This is the helper the Heavenly Sword sect found. Chu Tian's sword swung faster and faster. Several spirit beasts were cut down by his sword. When the Medicine King Valley, Divine Machine Hall, Void Spirit Cave, and Black Tortoise sect saw this, their expressions all changed. If it was just a few spirit beasts, it wouldn't be strange. Now that they found out that these mysterious people were all spirit beasts, looking at their clothes and totems, they were all the same. It was impossible for the Heavenly Sword sect to recruit this many people. This was simply an army placed in the Heavenly Sword sect. Do you see this? Chu Tian shouted while slashing, the Heavenly Sword sect is the true scourge of the Great Zhou country. If you continue to help them, even if you destroy the Black Moon sect, do you think you can escape? The Great Zhou country will become a pasture for the Eagle Burial Kingdom sooner or later. Have your people put down their weapons, I promise I won't kill them. Don't believe him. A spirit beast roared out in a hoarse voice, they are people from the Forest of Chaos. The Black Moon sect has already colluded with the Forest of Chaos, their motives aren't pure. They are just trying to confuse us now. Chu Tian gave a cold snort, seeking death. Spatial movement. Chu Tian raised the flaming sword and directly cut this person in half. The others were shocked when they saw this. This young man actually didn't use his full strength when fighting Ling Ying. Kill. At this time, a wolf race expert wildly slashed out with his dual blades. Chu Tian's flaming netherworld sword charged forward, completely ignoring the attacks. The sword in his hand was like a graceful streak as it flew out. The wolf race expert was shocked to find that the blade glow was easily bounced off Chu Tian's body. It was like a drop of water hitting a rock, not causing any damage at all. The other side's sword glow was coming closer and closer in his eyes. Ah! The wolf race expert gave a pitiful cry. Chu Tian was like a rainbow as he slashed through the blade glow, instantly piercing through his chest from the ground to the sky. The netherworld ghost flame wildly surged out, turning his body into countless black pieces that fell to the ground. If you stubbornly resist. Chu Tian stabilized himself and raised his sword. He was filled with killing intent, this is the result of all of you. The expressions of the sect leaders fell, go. Want to run? Chu Tian moved forward and slashed at Yuan Jinnan's mechanical armor. With a crackling sound, he was forced back to his original position, I'm afraid you won't be able to run. The 18 divine servants, Chu Tian, and Nangong Yun. The 20 of them attacked together. The entire battle lasted for less than 3 minutes. These sect leaders, the people with the highest status in Great Zhou, were all heavily injured by Chu Tian. They were all lying on the ground like dead dogs, unable to move. You're wild, you should be wild again. Nangong Yun kicked Jin Kuei a few times, if you have the guts, stand up and fight with this old lady for another 300 rounds. Nangong, that's enough. Tie them up immediately. Yes, boss. Chu Tian stood on the heavenly Yin mountain and looked into the distance as he said, from today onwards, the Great Zhou country will change. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.